Chapter 1173. The battle at Qingming River shocked the world. First, Magic Cloud City was destroyed. The entire large sect had tens of thousands of practitioners, but only a few hundred of them managed to escape. After that, less than 200 practitioners of Magic Cloud City, led by Xian Yun Laozu, were annexed by Lingyun Valley. After that, the 5 pure yang practitioners of the 5 Holy Lands set up an ambush above Qingming River to kill Xiao Baiyu. Unexpectedly, Yang Shouchong, the pure yang practitioner of the Peacock Royalty, and Laozu of Tianxian sect came to help Xiao Baiyu. The final result was even more surprising. Xiaozi of Lingyun Valley was beaten up by Yang Wangdi. Under Yang Wangdi's deliberate prank, Xiaozi's hair was disheveled like a ghost. All the practitioners who gathered at Qingming River at that time saw it, and it immediately became a joke in the cultivation world. It was very embarrassing. If it was because Yang Wangdi had the 5-element spiritual light fan, then it was reasonable for Xiaozi to be defeated. But when Muyi Laozu of Wuxing School was completely suppressed by Laozu of 7-element spiritual light fan and finally returned with injuries, everyone was shocked. Since when did the pure yang Laozu of the 5 Holy Lands become so easy to bully? For a time, the practitioners were at a loss, and they all attributed the reason to the spirit treasures in the hands of the 2 pure yang practitioners of Laozu. Needless to say, Yang Wangdi's 5-element spiritual light fan was a spirit treasure derived from the supreme magical power practiced by Peng Daoren in the past. The 7 spiritual fans in the hands of Laozu of 7 elements spiritual light fan, which was a replica of the 7 feathers fan of Luan Daoist, also shocked the world. Legend had it that the 7 feathers fan of Luan Daoist was made from the true spirit feathers of 7 kinds of phoenix bloodlines. It was a powerful heaven-opening artifact. At the beginning of the world, the Luan Daoist used the 7 feathers fan to control the weather of the world. It was sunny, cloudy, rainy, foggy, snowy, windy, and frosty. As long as the 7 feathers fan of Luan Daoist was waved, the world would change. The 7 feathered fans in Elder 7 fans' hands could not be combined into one. Although the feathers of the 7 spirit birds all belonged to the bloodline of the Luan, 4 of them were feathers obtained from pure yang spirit birds, while the other 3 were even worse. They were feathers obtained from 3 different spirit birds with Dharma Great Adepts level of cultivation. Although the Tianxian sect had spent a lot of effort on these 7 feathers over the past thousands of years, improving their quality, they were still restricted by nature. Until now, they had only survived the second thunder trial. Even so, the battle at the Qingming River had shocked the cultivation world with the power of the 7 feathers. Although the 7 fans could not be combined, they were a set. Even the Wuxing School's Muyi Laozu, who had lost to the 7 feathers fan of Laozu, had to admit afterward that even a pure yang spirit treasure that had survived the third thunder trial was nothing more than this. However, the so-called pure yang spirit treasure, of course, the main character of this battle was not these people, but the sky-splitting sword saint. Although Xiao Baiyu had the help of 2 pure yang spirit treasures, he still had to fight 1 against 3. However, the final result did not disappoint the cultivation world. Wang Shenqing fought fiercely, but in the end he was forced by the sword Qi. The second tribulation spirit treasure in his hand was knocked down a step, and he was also invaded by the sword Qi. After returning to the Xiang Palace, he went into seclusion and had not come out until now. The cultivation world guessed that this time, Wang Shenqing must have been seriously injured. Pure Yang Laozu's flying fork formation was also in unruly existence in the 9 Xian Tower. She had once publicly challenged the pure Yang Laozu of the 9 Xian Tower as a late Dharma practitioner. Although she had lost miserably, she was someone that no one in the 9 Xian Tower dared to provoke. This time, when she advanced to the pure yang level, she originally wanted to use Xiao Baiyu to show off. Who would have thought that Xiao Baiyu would break the flying fork formation with 1 sword strike? This caused her to be disgraced, and she had to run back to the 9 Xian Tower with her tail between her legs. Among the 3 of them, the one who suffered the least damage was Bailey Changtian Laozu of the Skyward Pavilion. This Laozu seemed to have some friendship with Xiao Baiyu in the past. In this battle, Bailey Changtian's space magic was also broken by Xiao Baiyu, but in the end he was able to escape unscathed and did not suffer any serious injuries. It must be known that in the beginning, Xiao Baiyu was besieged by 5 people. After the 2 pure yang Laozu rushed over to help, Xiao Baiyu had in fact already been injured under the siege of 5 pure yang adepts. But even so, he still managed to return victorious after fighting 1 against 3. In fact, this sky-splitting sword sage even had the time to destroy the treasured ship of the Northern Alliance with 1 sword strike. In the end, the 5 Holy Lands went for wool and came home shorn. Just as the pure Yang Laozu of the 5 Holy Lands conspired to kill Xiao Baiyu, a huge battle broke out on the 3 sky-splitting islands of the East Sea, and Skyrend almost became history. The Crystal Palace gathered 4 great adepts, 9 mid-Dharma Laozu, and a number of early Dharma adepts. Under the leadership of the pure Yang adept Yuan Lei Laozu, they took the opportunity to attack the 3 sky-splitting islands. Skyrend fought back. Skyrend was one of the 2 remaining great adepts. In order to resist the power of Yuan Lei Laozu's pure Yang power, he suddenly self-destructed while negotiating with the Crystal Palace adepts. Not only did the Crystal Palace adepts not expect this, even the adepts of Skyrend did not expect Laozu to be so violent. Because it was unexpected, the Crystal Palace was caught off guard. Including Yuan Lei Laozu, the 7 Dharma adepts of the Crystal Palace were all included in the range of Laozu's self-destruction. Yuan Lei Laozu vomited blood on the spot. Of the 2 great adepts, one was seriously injured and the other was on the verge of death. 2 mid-Dharma adepts and 2 early Dharma adepts of the 3rd generation died on the spot. The Crystal Palace was naturally angry that they had suffered such a setback before they had even made a move. However, when Skyrend saw their own Laozu self-destruct, they naturally thought that the Crystal Palace had gone too far and became even more resentful. When the Crystal Palace was still attacking the Silver Sword Island with a greater advantage, everyone in Skyrend was united in their hatred of the Crystal Palace and actually dealt damage to the Crystal Palace that was far greater than Skyrend's own damage. However, the Crystal Palace was ultimately too powerful. The Silver Sword Island quickly fell, and Skyrend retreated to the Gold Sword Island. Seeing that the Gold Sword Island was about to fall, and that Skyrend was in danger, the Green Sea Snakes suddenly intervened. Under the leadership of Chu Yunxiu, the pure Yang Laozu of the Wind Serpent clan, a few Dharma adepts, they formed a pincer attack with Skyrend. The situation in the East Sea cultivation world changed drastically, and the cultivators of the Crystal Palace retreated again and again. With the help of the Jade Sea Spirit Snake clan, the Sky-Splitting Sword sect had successfully reclaimed the Silver Sword Island, but the Crystal Palace had a strong start and a weak finish. In the end, they returned to the Crystal Palace with a huge loss of 1 Grand Adept, 3 Mid-Dharma Adepts, and 6 Early Dharma Adepts. Among them, the Great Adept of the Crystal Palace, who was seriously injured by Elder Skyrend's self-destruct, was killed because when the Green Sea Snakes suddenly appeared, pure Yang Laozu and Chu Yunxiu inadvertently blew a breath of air. Unexpectedly, the heavily injured Great Adept was blown to death. However, Skyrend also suffered a huge loss. Not only did a Great Adept Elder die in battle, but even with the advantage of the island's protective formation, 2 of the mid-Dharma adepts had fallen, and 4 of the early Dharma adepts had also died. To the whole of Skyrend, this was no less than a blow to the vitality of the whole of Skyrend. Skyrend was also a sect that had risen very quickly in recent years. Otherwise, it would not have been suppressed by the Crystal Palace with all its might. Over the years, with the power of Xiao Baiyu, apart from Xiao Baiyu, pure Yang Laozu, Skyrend originally had 3 great adepts, 6 mid-Dharma adepts, and 11 or 12 Dharma adepts. This time, it had suddenly lost a third of them. Although on the surface, it seemed that the Crystal Palace had suffered a greater loss, but the Crystal Palace had dominated overseas for tens of thousands of years. As the only major sect overseas, there had long been rumors in the world of practitioners that the Crystal Palace was the real #1 holy land in the world of practitioners. 10 Dharma adepts, including 1 great adept, had fallen. Although the loss was huge, it was far less serious than the loss of Skyrend. However, the most surprising thing was the attitude of the Green Sea Snake. In this internal strife among the human practitioners, The green sea snake had actually chosen to stand on the side of Xiao Baiyu. Thinking back to the previous battle at the Qingming River, the peacock race in the Endless Mountains seemed to have also stood on the side of Xiao Baiyu. Although Yang Shouchang, the royal brother, was famous for being unreliable in the world of practitioners, Yang Wangdi's identity made it so that no one dared to underestimate the attitude of the peacock royalty. The world of practitioners was a treacherous place. Apart from these famous sects, tribes, and clans, no one could see the current situation in the world of practitioners. However, at this time, another piece of news came from the world of practitioners. The great spiritual apes of the North Ice Plains, who had rarely appeared in the world of practitioners, suddenly appeared everywhere in the world of practitioners. Immediately after the peacock royalty, Yang Wangdi was once incited by someone to make a slip of the tongue when he was messing around in the Central Plains. He said that during the battle at the Qingming River, the last pure Yang adept who entered the battlefield was actually the former general of the great spiritual apes, Yuan Pokong. That guy is a madman, even crazier than Xiao Baiyu. He doesn't like to fight one-on-one, but he loves to fight in groups. Whenever he sees a group fight, he'll rush up and start a fight. After he messed things up like that, everyone else became his enemy. If it was a one-on-one fight, I naturally wouldn't be afraid, but who would be able to take a beating from him? You all saw it for yourselves. It wasn't just me, everyone else scattered. I heard that after Senior Laozu defeated the Unfettered One and everyone dispersed, that Yuan Pokong chased after Xiao Baiyu and Laozu. Senior, do you know why? Could it be that this Senior Yuan Pokong is also here to help Xiao Laozu? As he poured wine for Yang Wangdi, he asked about the minor repairs of an ordinary tavern in the Central Plains. Yang Wangdi looked at minor repairs from the corner of his eyes and said, "Brat, you've got some guts. You dare to trick me." That gaze scared the minor repairs out of his wits, but Yang Wangdi chuckled and said, "Then I'll tell you." Minor repairs cursed in his heart, "You're a pure young great cultivator. Do you feel any sense of accomplishment scaring a waiter like me?" Actually, Yuan Pokong suffered a loss at Madman Zhao's hands all those years ago. Oh, then this Yuan Pokong Laozu went to take revenge? Then, Laozu, did you also lose to Xiao Laozu back then? How could I possibly lose? Yang Wangdi immediately jumped up like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, and said, "He was the one who lost to me, okay? Is that okay?" The waiter hurriedly nodded and said, Good, good, how could Xiao Laozu be your opponent? A 5-element spiritual light fan is enough to send him back to the East Sea." Yang Wangdi immediately beamed with joy, and his expression was full of praise. He then took out a stone and gave it to Minor Repairs. Minor Repairs hurriedly thanked him, and when he raised his head, Yang Wangdi had already disappeared. Only then did he realize that the stone in his hand was actually a top-grade spirit stone. The next day, the tavern was burned into ruins. The culprit was unknown, but Yang Wangdi's words in the tavern had spread. Chapter 1174. Although Yang Shouchang had finally confirmed that the wise Great Ape clan had entered the cultivation world of the Central Plains, the cultivation world had never forgotten about the fuse of all these events, the heaven-opening relic in Hanya Laozu's possession. Regardless of whether it was the 6 sacred lands or the demon clan, none of them said a word about this matter. However, as time passed, news gradually spread. Hanya Laozu had never appeared in Wuxing School. Hundreds of miles north of the Qingming River, a great battle had broken out in a forest. After the battle, some cultivators had seen cultivators from the 5 holy lands in the vicinity, including the 11 cultivators who had rushed out of the Northern Alliance's treasure ship. As a result, the cultivation circle was once again filled with various rumors and speculations. Some said that Han Yi was dead and the heaven-opening relic had fallen into the hands of others. Some said that the 5 holy lands killed him afterwards. Some said that the heaven-opening relic did not exist and was just used to lure Xiao Baiyu, and so on. However, at this moment, the murderer of Hanya Laozu and the ultimate owner of the Northern Alliance's heaven-opening relic were resting on the back of a black tortoise on the Qingming River. On the other hand, although Lu Ping looked relaxed, his entire mind was focused on the handkerchief woven from the frost silk in his heart core. The eyes of the Dharma form of the dragon flickered with a green and red light. Characters began to appear on the snow-white silk handkerchief. The battle of the ice plains concerns the Khanate. For you, I will kill my way through this world. Only death awaits me. Determination, sorrow, heroism, sternness, killing intent, sword intent, affection, all the artistic conception came from these words. For a moment, Lu Ping was deeply immersed in the artistic conception expressed by these words. The Dharma form of the dragon shook its head and wagged its tail. The pearl of pure yang in its abdomen shone brightly. Lu Ping's divine sense finally sensed that something was wrong. The jade phosphorus soul fire blazed and began to struggle to break free from the binding of this artistic conception. Fortunately, Lu Ping's divine sense was outstanding, and he had the help of the jade phosphorus soul flame. So, he quickly broke free from the complex concepts expressed in these 20 words. However, Lu Ping still couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. It was just a few words, but they gave Lu Ping such a horrifying feeling. The heaven-splitting ancestors were truly people who could only be looked up to. Lu Ping, who had just woken up, didn't have the time to ponder over the artistic conception that Jiao Daoren had expressed in the 20 words at that time. Instead, he began to let his imagination run wild over the meaning of the 20 words. Who is Jiao Daoren going to fight in the icy plains? At the beginning of the world, besides the seventh patriarch himself, who else could threaten the existence like Jiao Daoren? Did the threat come from outside this world? However, considering the relationship between Jiao Daoren and Peng Daoren, and the fact that Jiao Daoren failed to ask Taoist who to refine the sword of the immortal spirit, Lu Ping was more willing to believe that the seventh patriarch had a dispute with him. So what was the purpose of the dispute? Perhaps the reason lay in the 4 words, "It's about the congenital." But what did the congenital mean? Lu Ping was still confused. The understanding of the congenital in the cultivation world was more like inborn and gifted. But in any case, these had nothing to do with the 7 heaven-splitting ancestors, Lao Tzu. I'll kill my way through this world for you. Only death awaits me. It was easy to understand. It seemed that Jiao Daoren was not optimistic about the upcoming battle in the icy plains and had risked his life. But it seemed that his life was not for him, but for others. Who was Jiao Daoren fighting for? Looking at the silk handkerchief and the tselwan ornament in the lower right corner of the silk handkerchief, the answer to the question seemed to be obvious. In the battle of the icy plains, Jiao Daoren wanted to fight for the Luan Daoist. The purpose of the congenital was also to fight for the Luan Daoist, even at the cost of his own life. As for why Jiao Daoren wanted to fight for the Luan Daoist, it was not difficult to understand. The 7th patriarch of the heaven-splitting ancestors had 4 men and 3 women. Among them, Taoist, who was a tall and sturdy woman, a real tigress and extremely fierce, while Luan Daoist and Taoist Chan were both charming great beauties. With Jiao Daoren's romantic personality, it was not strange if he really fell for the Luan Daoist skirt. Even if he had to pay with his own life for this, it might not be worth it in many people's eyes, or even a child's play. But no one knew whether Jiao Daoren believed in the saying, "Even if I die under a peony flower, I'll still be a romantic even as a ghost," and intended to verify it himself. All the mysteries seemed to revolve around the congenital, but Lu Ping had no clue what the congenital, in Jiao Daoren's words, meant. Lu Ping slowly sat up on the back of the black tortoise, stretched out his arms, and then looked to the north across the sky. The northern ice plains. It was said that the Lao Tzu who achieved the true spirit in the cultivation world would eventually disappear there, and it was also the place where the 7th patriarch of the heaven-splitting ancestors disappeared. It was said that the 7th patriarch of the heaven-splitting ancestors had opened a door to the outside world, and then disappeared from the northern ice plains. Everyone thought that the 7th patriarch had gone to a place outside of this world, and the true spirit cultivators of the cultivation world had all left the northern ice plains through the exit that the 7th patriarch had left behind. This legend was not groundless. It was spread to the world before the 7th patriarch went to the northern ice plains, and outside the passage, the 7th patriarch had set up a large formation. Those who were not Zhenling cultivators were not qualified to pass through the formation. In addition to testing the qualifications of cultivators to leave this world, This great formation was also used to protect this passageway. Not only was it used to protect it from being destroyed by cultivators from this world, it was also used to protect this passageway from being invaded by things from outside this world. However, from the looks of it now, it seemed that the passageway leading to the outside world under the cover of the layers of formations in the northern ice plains hid many secrets that outsiders did not know about. Unfortunately, all those who might know about these secrets never returned after entering the formation. The formation in the northern ice plains was the final goal of all the cultivators in this world. From the moment it appeared, it was covered in a layer of holiness. However, when Lu Ping looked to the north, he could not help but feel a shadow in his heart. Just what was behind the formation? Lu Ping shook his head and no longer thought about these things. With his current cultivation, he was far from having the qualifications to think about going there. However, the handwriting written by Jiao Daoren on the silk handkerchief had been spread to the world. Regardless of whether or not someone had truly comprehended any magical abilities from the handkerchief, at the very least, the contents of the handkerchief were known by more than one person. At the very least, Hanya Laozu knew about it. Otherwise, how could it have been spread to the world by the 5 Holy Lands? However, the 6 Holy Lands had spread Jiao Daoren's handwriting to the world, but they did not spread the contents of the handkerchief. It seemed that the 6 Holy Lands only wanted to use the handkerchief to kill Xiao Baiyu. They did not want to give up on the handkerchief written by Jiao Daoren. Could it be that the 6 Holy Lands themselves wanted to cover up this news? Although Lu Ping was a little uncertain, it was not impossible. At the very least, the 6 Holy Lands had been established at the beginning of the world. The founder of the 6 Holy Lands, Laozu, had more or less been directly or indirectly related to the 7th Patriarch. If one were to say who knew the most secrets of this world, it would probably be the 6 Holy Lands. In the core space, the dragon form once again opened its eyes wide to carefully study the handkerchief. This time, it was not looking at the contents of the handkerchief, but observing the handwriting. In the past, Xiao Baiyu had comprehended a peerless sword technique from the handkerchief written by Jiao Daoren. How could Lu Ping let go of such an opportunity? He had to give it a try after all. However, after observing for a while, even Lu Ping himself did not know how much time had passed, but he gained nothing. He could not help but feel discouraged. He thought to himself, could it be that only a pure sword practitioner like Xiao Baiyu, who has the extraordinary comprehension in the world, can comprehend something from it? Or maybe there is no peerless sword technique in these handkerchiefs at all. Lu Ping had no choice but to wake up from his meditative state again. He looked around and found that Xian Tortoise was following the flow of the river. He didn't know where it was now, but he noticed that the Qingming River seemed to flow a lot more smoothly. There were no longer hills and forests on both sides, but an endless plain. Lu Ping guessed that he was now in the middle of the Qingming River. On the plain, the green sea was rolling, but it was not seawater, but farmland. There were many figures in the farmland, but many mortals were working in it. Such a scene could also be seen overseas, but it was not as vast as the mainland. Besides, the number of cultivators and mortals in the overseas cultivation world was far less than that of the mainland. However, the ratio of cultivators and mortals in the overseas cultivation world was slightly higher than that of the mainland. There were also spiritual fields in the farmland from time to time because of the existence of spiritual gathering places. Therefore, low-level cultivators could often be seen flying in the sky, and the mortals on the ground had long been accustomed to it. Lu Ping's eyes were so sharp that he soon found that most of these low-level cultivators were minor repairs in the blood-refining realm. However, the flying celestial tools under their feet were mostly celestial tools. Thinking of the joy of obtaining a celestial tool when he was in the late blood-refining realm, the popularity of celestial tools among the blood-refining realm cultivators in the mainland was obviously much higher than that of the North Sea. Thinking of refining celestial tools, Lu Ping suddenly made an "oh" sound. Strictly speaking, the silk handkerchief was only made of extremely high quality, but it itself was not a celestial tool or a magic treasure. Those who obtained it would naturally not try to refine it with their true essence. At this time, an idea popped up in Lu Ping's mind for no reason. Should I try refining it with my true essence? The true essence was like a surging sea, instantly immersing the entire handkerchief in it. The colorful phoenix in the lower right corner of the silk handkerchief shone brightly, and the lifelike colorful phoenix seemed to be alive. At the same time, 3 inexplicable auras were suddenly attracted by Lu Ping's vigorous true essence, but Lu Ping's eyes became brighter and brighter. There was really something strange inside. Chapter 1175. Longhuai ancestor once said that there was a treasure hidden in the silk handkerchief. After Hanya Laozu obtained it, he wanted to bring it back to Wuxing School to make up for the shortcomings of the water-broken school. However, although the two of them could sense that there was a treasure hidden in the silk handkerchief, they didn't know what the treasure was. Of course, it was also possible that Longhuai ancestor knew what was inside, but he didn't tell Lu Ping. However, when Lu Ping's real essence flowed into the silk handkerchief, he encountered a strange thing. With Lu Ping's current arcane essence, his arcane essence was already rich and pure. The North Sea Wave listening scripture, a mysterious cultivation method, had extremely strict requirements on the purity of his arcane essence. As a result, when he was in the core forging realm, he chose to fuse with 1 heaven low-grade arcane essence, 2 heaven mid-grade arcane essences, and 3 heaven high-grade arcane essences. This method of fusion was one of a kind in the cultivation world. Of course, Lu Ping's hard work and luck played a huge part in this, but the root cause was the North Sea Wave listening scripture's outstanding cultivation method. After Lu Ping fused with such wonderful heaven-level spirit objects, the water property in his real essence was really rare in the world. It could be said that if Lu Ping melted a drop of real essence into a pool of spiritual water, then depending on the amount of spiritual water and the degree of the real essence, the spiritual property in the spiritual water would be comparable to any heaven-level spirit object, ranging from heaven-level low-grade to heaven-level high-grade. Of course, real essence water could not be used as heaven-level spirit water unless it was absolutely necessary. This was because real essence water was usually the fusion of several heaven-level spirit objects, and there was no longer a pure spiritual property in it. However, just as Lu Ping inserted his real essence into the silk handkerchief, he suddenly found a spiritual property that was far more spiritual than Lu Ping's real essence. This kind of spiritual property was not as pure as heaven-level spirit objects. On the contrary, it was like the refined real essence of spirit objects. It was a kind of man-made object. However, Lu Ping soon found that there was more than one spiritual property hidden in the silk handkerchief. He soon found a second one, and then a third one. When Lu Ping's real essence had soaked the whole silk handkerchief, he finally confirmed that there were only 3 spiritual property in the silk handkerchief. What was this? Lu Ping summoned Linglong's wine cauldron from the side of the Dharma idol. Since the last time when he tried to stop Hanya Laozu from self-destructing, Linglong had been in a state of deep sleep. Lu Ping knew that Linglong's vitality had been injured this time. Although it was difficult to control the real essence of a great cultivator, if she could really control it, it would be an excellent opportunity to improve her own quality. However, at this time, he had to wake Linglong from her deep sleep. Linglong was extremely familiar and sensitive to all kinds of spiritual liquids in the world. Perhaps she could guess a thing or two about this kind of spiritual liquid that Lu Ping had never seen before. Linglong reluctantly put the silk handkerchief in the wine cauldron. The Dharma idol spat out a mouthful of original dragon breath, and the wine cauldron immediately began to spin. In just a moment, Linglong's scream came from the wine cauldron. The Dharma idol immediately stopped, and the wine cauldron also stopped spinning. Linglong came out of the wine cauldron and said, "Brother, the things on this silk handkerchief are very precious, I want them." The Dharma idol sat on the lotus and said, "Do you have a way to separate the 3 spiritual property from the silk handkerchief?" Linglong's face suddenly became bitter, and she shook her head. Lu Ping couldn't help but feel a little disappointed, but he still asked, "Do you know what these 3 spiritual property are?" Linglong hesitated and said, "They seem to be tears." Tears? Lu Ping couldn't help but be surprised, but then Lu Ping also felt that it might really be tears. Wasn't a handkerchief originally used to wipe sweat, tears, and the like? It was reasonable to say that there were tears in the silk handkerchief. However, These tears were too mysterious. The 3 drops of tears soaked in the silk handkerchief for a long time without drying up. Moreover, thinking about the spirituality contained in the silk handkerchief that even Lu Ping's own Zhen Yuan couldn't compare to, it seemed that the original owner of these tears was on the verge of being revealed. The tears of the Luan Taoist. As for the reason, it seemed to be easy to explain. Jiao Daoren had left a message on this silk handkerchief and even said that he would die for her, so it was only natural that the Luan Taoist would be moved to tears. As for why he was so sure that the tears in the silk handkerchief definitely belonged to the Luan Taoist, Lu Ping looked at the Kai Luan at the bottom right corner of the silk handkerchief and didn't seem to have any other guesses. Moreover, other than the Luan Taoist's identity as the 7th patriarch of opening up the sky, what other tears could exist in this silk handkerchief for such a long time without drying up? Lu Ping immediately thought of something, and his divine will descended into the House of Gold, immediately forming a shadow of Lu Ping. This was also a remarkable ability that Lu Ping had mastered after advancing to the mid-Dharma stage. In other words, it was the image of divine will technique, which was actually the condensation of one's own divine will into a projection, which could be used to converse with someone who wasn't in front of him. This was originally a technique that could only be mastered after advancing to the late Dharma stage. Now that Lu Ping's level of practice had stabilized, he could also use the image of divine will technique. The projection held the silk handkerchief and called Lu Qiner over, instructing her, "Qiner, can you see if you can feel what's in the silk handkerchief?" Lu Qiner's divine will entered the handkerchief, and she could not help but frown. Then, she tried to use her inner yuan to enter the handkerchief, but the silk handkerchief had long been filled with Lu Ping's own inner yuan. There was no way that Lu Qiner could fight against Lu Ping's inner yuan. Without waiting for Lu Ping to say anything, Lu Qiner let out a cry of surprise and almost fell. Lu Ping's image of divine will was directed towards Lu Qiner, and a thick wave of inner yuan was injected into Lu Qiner's body through the air. Only then did he say, "Qin, try again this time." Although she had the support of Lu Ping's inner yuan, Lu Qiner still carefully reached out to touch the silk handkerchief. After making sure that there was no backlash from Lu Ping's inner yuan, she then followed the guidance of Lu Ping's inner yuan and began to search for the 3 teardrops hidden in the silk handkerchief. Lu Qiner's expression suddenly became pious, and her eyelids twitched. Clearly, she was extremely excited at this time. Lu Ping softly asked, "Qin, how is it?" As soon as he said this, Lu Qiner actually knelt down towards the silk handkerchief, and then she piously returned the silk handkerchief to Lu Ping, saying, "Big brother, this silk handkerchief contains the sacred relic of Qin Er's ancestor. It seems to be tears?" Lu Ping's heart became even more certain, and he asked, "Does Qin Er know if this is a sacred relic left behind by the ancestor of the Luan clan?" Lu Qiner shook her head and said, "Qin Er can only feel that these 3 teardrops contain a vast amount of qi from the ancestor of the Luan clan, and it will be of great help to Qin Er's growth. As for which ancestor of the Luan clan, Qin Er doesn't know. However, this ancestor must be very powerful, and Qin Er can't imagine that these 3 teardrops can contain such great power." Lu Ping noticed the excitement on Lu Qiner's face, so he asked softly, "Qin Er, are you confident you can extract the senior's relic from the silk handkerchief? I'm sure they will be very useful to you, right?" Lu Qiner thought for a moment, and then shook her head, saying, "Qin Er's cultivation is not high enough. Qin Er's instincts can sense these things, and they will be of great benefit to Qin Er in the future. However, Qin Er is far from being able to absorb and refine them now." Lu Ping couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Originally, he thought that even if Lu Qiner couldn't extract the teardrops from the silk handkerchief, if she could absorb a portion of them, she would be able to break through to the 9th layer of core forging and condense a high-grade golden core. However, this was clearly not something that the current Lu Qiner could enjoy. For a moment, Lu Ping seemed to be at a loss of what to do. If he couldn't extract the 3 teardrops, then he would be unable to use the ready-made treasures. With no other choice, Lu Ping could only put all his energy back into the 20 handkerchief handwriting of Jiao Daoren. He wanted to see if he could comprehend a trace of the essence of swordsmanship hidden in Jiao Doran's handwriting. However, at this moment, Lu Ping suddenly discovered that the Dragon Dharma idol had unknowingly spat out the pure yang pearl, and it was currently floating above the silk handkerchief. Lu Ping was stunned. His divine sense penetrated the pure yang pearl, and to his surprise, he discovered that traces of pure yang qi were being emitted from the silk handkerchief and were gathering towards the pure yang pearl in midair. Even the teardrops contained pure yang qi. No matter how Lu Ping thought about it, he was afraid that only a mighty figure like Yuan Daoist could achieve this state of plucking a hair to benefit the world. Lu Ping was naturally overjoyed. Although he had spent most of his energy on the silk handkerchief while drifting on the Qingming River, Lu Ping's cultivation had still ushered in a period of rapid growth. The reason was that after Lu Ping had survived the first lightning tribulation, the pure yang soul of flying Laozu had condensed into a ball of essence, which was being continuously absorbed by the Dragon Dharma idol. As the Dragon Dharma idol absorbed, refined, and fused with the pure yang qi, the pure yang pearl was gradually refined by the Dragon Dharma idol. Unknowingly, it made Lu Ping think of a divine object like the dragon pearl. However, in this world, other than the Longhuai ancestor, the word dragon had never appeared, let alone the dragon pearl. Just as the pure yang qi that was hidden in the teardrops in the silk handkerchief was absorbed by the pure yang pearl, Lu Ping's divine sense suddenly discovered that the 3 teardrops had come alive. Of course, it was not that the 3 teardrops had come alive, but that the 3 teardrops were finally no longer as indifferent to any of Lu Ping's methods as before. Under Linglong's repeated confirmation and Lu Ping's repeated promises, Linglong finally agreed to help Lu Ping extract the 3 teardrops from the silk handkerchief. The condition was naturally that Linglong would leave enough benefits in the teardrops. Therefore, Linglong had already decided that after absorbing the essence of the phoenix teardrops, it would be time for Lu Ping to summon the second lightning tribulation. Chapter 1176. The 3 teardrops were carefully placed into a jade essence bottle by Lu Ping. After thinking for a bit, Lu Ping poured out another teardrop into his palm and began to sense its aura. After all, this was something from Sky Splitter Laozu. Even though it was only a teardrop, perhaps it contained something useful to Lu Ping. As for the other teardrop, Lu Ping didn't give it to Linglong or Lu Qina. Lu Qina wanted this teardrop to sense the aura of Yuan Daoist. Lu Qina was a wind and fire dual cultivator, but this teardrop was a water source in the end, so it wouldn't be of too much help to her own cultivation. What was truly useful to the main body was Linglong, so despite Linglong's reluctance, Lu Ping still gave the teardrop to Lu Qina first to sense it. Lu Ping himself was also carefully inspecting one of the Yuan teardrops. Just before, after Lu Ping used the pure yang bead to strip away the trace of pure yang energy from the 3 Yuan teardrops, there was a moment when the talisman Lu Ping condensed in the Dharma manifestation's auspicious cloud throbbed. Lu Ping's senses were sharp. In just an instant, he discovered that the talisman that was affected by the Yuan's aura was actually the talisman that Lu Ping had been trying to cultivate for a long time but had failed twice. The bubbling sky-filling sword art was an extremely strange technique. Although it was a water attribute technique, it carried a trace of something related to the fire attribute. Originally, this sword technique of Lu Ping might be a dual cultivator of water and fire, but at his current level of cultivation, his vision and knowledge were far from what it used to be. Soon, he found that this sword technique was not like that. Instead, it was greatly influenced by Xie Tianyang. Back when Xie Tianyang exchanged the cultivation method of the boiling sky sword technique from Lu Ping, he said that there was a senior of Purple Sun Palace, Laozu, who believed that this sword technique had many wondrous uses and revelations for fire and water. It was also very useful for cultivators who cultivated these 2 attributes, so he exchanged this sword technique with Lu Ping. But in reality, Lu Ping was misled by Xie Tianyang. It was not that this sword technique was completely unrelated to the fire attribute, but this sword technique was a genuine water attribute sword technique. However, in the process of cultivating this sword technique, if one wanted to achieve success, they would need an external help. Or perhaps this should be a dual cultivator sword technique. This external assistance was a fire-attributed sword technique or fire-attributed divine ability that was compatible with the bubbling heaven sword art. The so-called fire and water complementing each other didn't mean that the cultivator who cultivated this sword art had to cultivate both fire and water at the same time. Instead, the cultivator who cultivated another fire-attributed sword technique or fire-attributed cultivation method needed to lend a helping hand. Only then would the cultivator be able to reach the highest realm of this sword art. The ancestors of the Overwhelming Sky sect described this sword technique as a pot of hot soup that needed fire to be added to boil. In fact, this was not wrong. However, the boiling hot soup was still separated from the fire by a layer of the pot. In the end, it couldn't be considered true fire and water complementing each other, but it was borrowing the power of the fire. But now, for some inexplicable reason, the Luan's tear bead had become a catalyst for Lu Ping's sky-boiling sword art. The tear was still based on water. In the past, the Luan Taoist didn't only use fire attribute abilities to dominate the world. However, the Luan Taoist himself liked to live in places with volcanoes and magma. These places were all extremely rich in fire attribute origin energy. Because of this, the Fire Phoenix clan was the most powerful among the direct descendants of the Luan Taoist. Moreover, the Fire Phoenix clan believed that the Luan Taoist was originally from the Fire Phoenix clan. However, when one reached the level of the Luan Taoist, there were no clear differences between water, fire, wood, or wind spells. This was why the descendants didn't know the origin of the Luan Taoist. If this was really the case, then the Luan Taoist tear contained a strong fire attribute origin energy. However, the tear itself still appeared as a tear. This made sense. After all, the abilities of the Sky Splitter Laozu were not something that these cultivators could figure out. Lu Ping knew that this was his chance. Following the inexplicable aura in the teardrop, the spinning chain kill talisman suddenly shone brightly and absorbed the teardrop that was once soaked in the fire element into the talisman. Then, the dragon avatar suddenly raised its head and the reverse scale on its neck shone with a purplish golden light. The talisman was attracted to the reverse scale and began to construct a new skill seed. In the blink of an eye, Lu Ping had acquired another great innate skill. Among the 4 fundamental abilities of the Boiling Sky Sword technique, the Serial Killing technique, the Seeping Sword technique, and the Drowning Sword technique had all been successfully condensed into great abilities. Only the Boiling Water Sword technique, which Lu Ping had always been clueless about, was left. Not even the talisman had been formed in the Dharma manifestation's auspicious cloud. Naturally, Lu Ping would not let go of this opportunity. In the middle of the Dharma manifestation's auspicious cloud, a purple-golden mist suddenly began to condense, rolling like boiling water. Even the whole core space was filled with the sound of water boiling. The Boiling Water Sword technique, which he had been studying for many years, was suddenly formed at this moment. After an unknown amount of time, in the middle of the Dharma manifestation's auspicious cloud, a talisman gradually condensed. No matter where this talisman swam in the auspicious cloud around it suddenly began to churn violently as if it was boiling. The magical talisman of the Boiling Water Sword technique was finally condensed. Naturally, Lu Ping wouldn't let go of such a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He focused all his attention on his heart core and the serial whirlwind kill that he condensed into the seed of the Boiling Water Sword skill, Seeping Water Sword skill, and Drowning Water Sword skill immediately became the bridge between the Boiling Water Sword skill, Seeping Water Sword skill, and Drowning Sword skill. The Dharma manifestation of the dragon was churning up and down in the core space, and the real essence in Lu Ping's blood was like a flowing river, gathering all the real essence into the core space. The sound of the Qingming River flowing towards the south had been replaced by the sound of Goyalu, Goyal. On the surface of the river with a radius of more than 1,000 feet around Black Tortoise, the Qingming River seemed to be boiling, and a large number of bubbles appeared. Countless Kuei water essence was absorbed from the river and gathered in Lu Ping's body. Lu Ping's clothes were suddenly all wet. At the same time, Lu Ping's Black Tortoise also benefited. Taking advantage of the time when Lu Ping was absorbing the essence of the Qingming River, Black Tortoise greedily absorbed the essence of the water, and its cultivation began to grow rapidly. At this time, Lu Ping simply released Samling, letting the three of them take the opportunity to cultivate, and at the same time, protect him when he was in closed-door cultivation. As the sun rose and set, the upstream and downstream of the Qingming River where Lu Ping was located, within a radius of 5 miles, was filled with the mist of the river, and it lasted for 2 years. The strange scene of the dense fog sealing the river naturally quickly attracted the attention of the nearby cultivators. Some cultivators were attracted over and took the risk to enter the fog to investigate the situation, but they suddenly discovered that this place was actually filled with dense water element spirit energy. These cultivators were naturally overjoyed. To be able to gather such rich spiritual qi, there must be some great treasure in the Qingming River, so they naturally wanted to explore further into the depths of the mist. Unexpectedly, before they could go deeper, they were inexplicably knocked out by an attack and thrown out of the Qingming River. However, this method not only did not stop the greed of the cultivators, but also made the news spread more and more widely, attracting the attention of more cultivators, including some high-level cultivators in the sections. However, when these late core forging adepts, who were high and mighty in the eyes of ordinary cultivators, entered the mist and were thrown out of the Qingming River like dead dogs, finally a portion of the cultivators realized that something was wrong and slowly began to retreat. However, such a strange scene happening on the Qingming River, in the end, there was still a portion of cultivators who were unconvinced and called for the intervention of Fa Xiang Laozu. However, when other Dharma adepts entered the fog, they would usually hear an earth-shattering battle from within the fog, after which everything became silent. Just as the cultivators outside the fog were wondering what was going on, the Dharma adept walked out of the fog with a strange look on his face. He then warned the cultivators waiting outside the fog that the person in the middle of the Qingming River was a powerful cultivator who was cultivating in seclusion. They were not to enter and disturb the senior cultivator's cultivation. When the news spread, many of the cultivators who thought that it was some kind of treasure were naturally disappointed, and they all turned back. Some greedy cultivators saw that even Fa Xiang Laozu could not do anything about it, and could only suppress the greed in their hearts. However, there were still some cultivators who stayed outside the mist, trying to use the dense water-based spiritual qi in the mist to start cultivating, and the powerful cultivator hidden in the mist obviously did not make a move to chase these cultivators away. And just as these Dharma adepts left, the cultivation world finally spread another piece of shocking news. There was a powerful cultivator of the green sea snakes swimming in the Qingming River to cultivate in seclusion, causing the mist to lock the river. The news was accurate. One after another, a few Dharma adepts entered the mist to investigate, but they were blocked by the combined forces of 3 green sea snakes. These 3 green sea snakes were a wind snake, a water snake, and an ice snake, all of which had the authentic bloodline of the green sea snakes. The 3 snakes were all at the peak of the core forging stage, but their abilities were not inferior to the direct disciples of the 5 Holy Lands who had condensed a 9th-grade golden core. The 3 snakes joined forces to fight against every Dharma adept that entered the mist, and then explained the reason to them. It turned out that the elders of these 3 green sea snakes suddenly had an epiphany when they were traveling in the Qingming River, and so they began to cultivate in seclusion in the Qingming River. The 3 young cultivators naturally had to protect their elders. As for the mist that filled the sky, it was formed by the powerful cultivator of the green sea snakes, who had extracted the essence of the water element from the Qingming River during his cultivation. Many early Dharma adepts had been defeated by the 3 of them, and even 2 mid-Dharma adepts from mid-sized sects had entered the mist, but in the end, they did not have the upper hand. Even if there were strong mid-Dharma adepts who had the upper hand, after the 3 snakes revealed their identities, they all showed signs of fear. No one was willing to offend the green sea snakes for no reason. Chapter 1177. On this day, a middle-aged cultivator was riding a giant anaconda downstream of the Qingming River. He traveled upstream and arrived in front of the mist that covered most of the Qingming River. At this moment, a deafening roar suddenly came from the depths of the fog. It was like a huge pot of boiling water was surging and churning. The mist covering the surface of the river churned violently. Many of the low-level cultivators who had been cultivating within the mist for the past 2 years cried out in shock as they quickly flew out from the mist. Then, they saw that the mist covering the surface of the river for the past 2 days was rapidly shrinking. The middle-aged cultivator was slightly surprised, but then he smiled and said, "What a coincidence!" As the mist shrank, the middle-aged cultivator leisurely strolled in the direction of the mist. When the mist had shrunk to a size of 300 zhang, the middle-aged cultivator finally came to a halt. At that moment, the mist was roiling even more violently. The gulil sound was so loud that even the middle-aged cultivator could feel a wave of heat assaulting his face. The middle-aged cultivator was taken aback for a moment. Instantly, he realized that there was no real heat wave charging towards him. Rather, it was an illusion that his soul was experiencing. Or perhaps, it was just a feeling. The heat wave was actually charging towards his soul in the first place. The Surging Heavens sect's Surging Heavens sword art is truly unique. The middle-aged cultivator nodded in praise. At this moment, the mist finally shrunk completely, disappearing into the body of a young cultivator. Beneath his feet, a huge black tortoise floated silently above the azure nether river, and behind him stood 3 youths around the age of 15 or 16. This young cultivator was naturally Lu Ping, and the one standing behind him was naturally Samling. The middle-aged cultivator smiled at Lu Ping, then looked at the Samling behind Lu Ping with a satisfied expression. He then looked at the giant Shen tortoise beneath Lu Ping's feet and said in surprise, "The tyrannical tortoise bloodline. Your Excellency is truly becoming more and more astonishing." Lu Ping seemed to have already sensed the arrival of the middle-aged cultivator. He only smiled slightly and said, "Your Excellency, did you come from the East Sea for the Samling?" The middle-aged cultivator was surprised that Lu Ping could see through him at a glance. One must know that the middle-aged cultivator's cultivation was far above Lu Ping's. He was confident that even the Samling behind Lu Ping would not be able to discover that he was from the same clan. However, he was seen through by Lu Ping at a glance. This caused the middle-aged cultivator to put away his contempt. His expression became much more solemn. He laughed and said, "I am Chu Yuntian from the Green Sea Snake Wind Snake Clan. Greetings, Lu Daoyu." Lu Ping naturally did not dare to slight him. He also bowed and said, "Lu Tianping from the North Sea greets you, Senior. May I know if you have come specially for the Samling?" Chu Yuntian smiled and said, "Lu Xiaoyu has made such a big movement in the Central Plains. Even the Green Sea snakes in the East Sea have heard the news. Tsunami and Hailan naturally did not dare to hide the fact that you have the Green Sea snakes following you. Hence, I came to the Central Plains." Lu Ping nodded. He had a sudden inspiration on the Qingming River. In order to seize this fleeting opportunity, he had to go into seclusion on the spot by the Fog Lock River. In order not to be disturbed during his seclusion, he had to summon Samling to protect him. At that time, he already knew that the identity of Samling could not be maintained. Hence, he was already prepared for the arrival of the Green Sea Snakes. As for the Green Sea Snakes, they had always been a race that valued their own clansmen. The sudden news from the Central Plains that a great medic of the Green Sea Snakes was on the Qingming River in seclusion on the spot by the Fog Lock River. This naturally caused the Green Sea Snakes to be extremely surprised and attach great importance to it. Since when did a cultivator from their clan go to the Middle Earth? Who would be so reckless as to enter seclusion on the Azure Nether River with 3 juniors? Furthermore, from the information they received, these 3 juniors were actually a wind serpent, a water serpent, and an ice serpent. Impressively, they were the 3 most powerful tribes of the Emerald Sea Spirit Snake Clan. This time, Chu Yuntian came to the Central Plains to investigate this matter. If there was really a cultivator from the Green Sea Snakes who was cultivating outside, Chu Yuntian naturally had to lend a helping hand. He would protect the cultivator and protect the 3 younger disciples at the same time. If someone was impersonating the cultivator, or someone had kidnapped the younger disciples of the Green Sea Snakes, then Chu Yuntian's mission would naturally become a thunderbolt. Unexpectedly, on the eve of Chu Yuntian's departure, the outstanding disciples of the 3rd generation, Chu Haitian, Chu Haitian's cousin, and Chu Hailan, the surprising disciple from the Fire Snake clan, came together to report Lu Ping's matter to the elders of the Green Sea Snakes. At the same time, they also insisted that Lu Ping did not seal Samling's divine sense and identity as Samling's follower. They also insisted on the deep relationship between Samling and Lu Ping. With the explanation of Chu Haitian and the other two, the identity of Samling's direct descendant was no longer in doubt. At the same time, the Green Sea Snakes gradually divided into two groups. One group naturally wanted to bring Samling back to the clan. How could the bloodline of the Green Sea Snakes wander outside? As for Lu Tianping, although they would not kill him, they would still punish him slightly. The other group of cultivators was also a little hesitant because Chu Haitian and the others insisted on the identity of Samling's follower. This was because the Green Sea Snakes allowed their clansmen to become the followers of powerful cultivators. The Emerald Sea Spirit Snake clan had never been a clan that was complacent. They knew the principle of learning from others. Although they had the best bloodline inheritance in the world, they also hoped that their clansmen could learn more from outsiders to promote their own clan's progress. Otherwise, the Emerald Sea Spirit Snake clan would not have chased the arrogant primordial giant crocodile from the East Sea to the desolate North Sea cultivation world. He was just a practitioner from a medium-sized sect in the North Sea cultivation world. No matter how one looked at it, Lu Tianping could not be associated with the great divines. Even though Chu Haishao and the others had repeatedly praised Lu Tianping for his prowess, he was at most a minor mid-dharma adept like Chu Haishao. At best, he could only be considered a great divines in the future, but he was far from qualified now. Just as the two groups were in a stalemate, three great cultivator elders of the Green Sea Snakes stood up and said that they might as well wait and see. He had to wait and see what level Lu Tianping could reach in the future. After all, Chu Haishao had already passed on part of the secret techniques of the Emerald Sea Spirit Snake to the three spirits. This way, before the three spirits reached the mid-dharma stage, their growth would not be delayed. Taking a look, they might as well send out an elder to evaluate him, to see if his strength and character could reach a high enough level in the future. After all, Samling and Lu Tianping were like father and son. If they really brought Samling back by force, it might backfire. These three great cultivator elders were none other than the first-generation elder Chu Fuyu, Chu Tianya, and the second-generation elder Chu Tianyu, who had received help from Lu Ping during the Battle of the Illusionary Five Islands. These three were the ones who had the most authority in the Green Sea Snakes. Their suggestion was finally agreed by everyone, and they unanimously sent Chu Yuntian all the way to the Qingming River. Chu Yuntian saw that Samling was looking at him and smiled. After all, you all have the bloodline of the Green Sea Snakes. Your race will eventually return. How about it? Are you willing to return to the East Sea with the old man? Samling did not hesitate at all and shook his head in rejection. Chu Yuntian did not say anything else. Instead, he smiled at Lu Ping. However, when Lu Ping saw Chu Yuntian smile, his expression immediately changed. He flung his body backward and opened the space door of the Golden House, keeping Samling inside. Then, instead of retreating, he moved forward and stretched out his hand to push backward. No one knew when Lu Ping had grown a tail behind him. The curled tail was obviously aimed at the back of Samling. However, Lu Ping had noticed it in advance and kept Samling first. Since he could not persuade Lu Ping, he was going to rob him by force. Lu Ping moved forward and blocked Chu Yuntian's sneak attack. However, it did not seem to be beyond Chu Yuntian's expectations. Instead, he fell into a trap that Chu Yuntian had already set up. In reality, when a great adept suddenly used a sneak attack to attack Lu Ping already knew that what would follow would be a series of attacks like a storm. His opponent would not give Lu Ping any time to breathe. Chu Yuntian was treating Lu Ping as an equal opponent. He was not treating Lu Ping like a great adept would treat a junior at the mid-dharma stage. Chu Yuntian opened his mouth and spat out a black cloud. However, it turned into a billowing black wind that rushed towards Lu Ping, who had no choice but to pounce on him. The black wind was like a bone-grinding blade, while the black cloud was like a bone-corroding poison. The two combined and rolled, trapping Lu Ping, who could not dodge in time. A look of disappointment flashed across Chu Yuntian's face. Although his opponent was only a great adept at the mid-Dharma stage, even if the green sea snakes did not value Lu Ping's abilities, he had not yet become a great medic. If Lu Ping's abilities were not unique among his peers, how would the green sea snakes dare to entrust their own junior to him? Chu Yuntian was very clear that although he was a great adept at the late Dharma stage, Chu Haitian was also a great Dharma adept. However, Chu Haitian was able to easily break through Chu Yuntian's technique. Although Chu Haitian had repeatedly claimed that Lu Tianping's abilities were not below his, Chu Yuntian still had some doubts. Lu Tianping had come from a poor place like China, so it was fine if he was a little more outstanding. However, how could he be compared to the first of the 3 generations of the green sea snakes? Chu Haitian seemed to be a person who valued friendship and friendship. Chu Yuntian was most likely exaggerating on Lu Tianping's behalf. However, this remarkable power did not require Lu Tianping to completely break through like nephew tsunami. As long as Lu Tianping could withstand the power of the remarkable power, he would pass. Chu Yuntian thought to himself. However, before this thought flashed through Chu Yuntian's mind, a flying sword suddenly appeared in the space between Black Wind and Chu Yuntian. It was a blue flying sword. Because of the black wind swirling clouds in front of him, Chu Yuntian did not need to use any defensive treasures. If he wanted to pose a threat to Chu Yuntian, he would first have to break through or withstand the remarkable power in front of him. However, suddenly, a flying sword appeared in front of the two of them, piercing towards the chest of Chu Yuntian, who only had time to cast his defensive remarkable power. The layers of vigor chi that were used to block the attack were shattered one by one. Chapter 1178. The protective magic of a great cultivator was naturally not so easily pierced. However, the water nether sword was no longer the flying sword that relied purely on stealth to assassinate its opponent. Having survived the first thunder tribulation, even in a head-on battle, it was not something that Chu Yuntian's hurried protective gang chi could block. Chu Yuntian's eyes were wide open as he stared at the nether water sword that was less than a foot away from his chest. He suddenly opened his mouth and shouted. A long spear with a forked tip shot out and struck the tip of the nether water sword before it could pierce his chest. The forked snake spear was naturally formed from the snake tongue of Chu Yuntian's main body. Although the nether water sword had struck its target, the expression on Chu Yuntian's face was contorted. It was obvious that he was enduring immense pain. However, before the nether water sword could be sent flying, an arm suddenly stretched out from the place covered by the black clouds. It firmly grasped the nether water sword, and then casually chopped down. A sword light drew down a bolt of lightning in the air, killing with lightning speed. At this moment, Chu Yuntian was still unprepared because of Lu Ping's sneak attack. Thunderclap sword technique, divine water lightning. Chu Yuntian let out a strange cry. He naturally knew that Chu Tianya had once passed the inheritance of the thunderclap sword art to Lu Ping, but he did not expect Lu Ping to have already mastered its innate great ability so quickly. Moreover, under the cover of the divine sunflower water lightning, its power had more than doubled. In the end, Chu Yuntian was not an ordinary great cultivator. Just as the lightning sword was about to strike him, he forcibly tore open a spatial door behind him. His entire body shrunk backwards, and he immediately disappeared into it. However, as the lightning descended, it became like mercury pouring down from every pore. Before Chu Yuntian's spatial door had completely closed, the lightning had already penetrated through the crack that was left behind. Seeping water sword technique. Lu Ping was already proficient in switching between great abilities. The moment he used the thunderclap sword technique, he had already hidden a variety of changes, waiting for his opponent to change before launching another thunderous attack. Dozens of feet away, a spatial door exploded, and Chu Yuntian fell out of it in a rather sorry state. If not for Chu Yuntian's deep attainments in spatial doors, he would most likely have suffered a loss at Lu Ping's hands. Chu Yuntian looked warily at the blue flying sword hovering in Lu Ping's hand, waiting for an opportunity. He thought to himself, what a wonderful swordsmanship ability, and what a profound attainment in swordsmanship. Just based on that previous strike, This boy's strength cannot possibly be suppressed by the tsunami. However, what was even more surprising was that under the attack of the black wind and black mist, Lu Ping actually broke out of it unscathed. One must know that the black mist was a vital poison that Chu Yuntian had nurtured in his body for more than 1,000 years. It was a first-class poison in the cultivation world, and the black wind was called the bone-crushing wind. It specialized in damaging the flesh and bones of cultivators, and was the most difficult to defend against. Such two abilities were easily blocked by Lu Ping. Chu Yuntian felt that he had a very good understanding of Lu Ping's strength. He thought to himself that if this person did not die prematurely, it would be quite something to look forward to. In order to understand Lu Ping's strength, Chu Yuntian had taken him by surprise at the beginning. Now that he thought that he had a good understanding of Lu Ping's strength, he wanted to stop and say a few words of encouragement to Lu Ping. Unexpectedly, Lu Ping had almost suffered a great loss. In particular, that black wind had almost pierced through Lu Ping's protective magic power, scraping off a layer of his skin and flesh, and had even pierced into his bones. It was obviously a kind of vicious magic power that specialized in damaging the flesh of cultivators. At this time, how could Lu Ping let go? How could he stop just because Chu Yuntian had the intention of stopping? He was just a late Dharma adept. So what if he was a green sea snake? The netherworld aqua sword flashed away. Chu Yuntian was about to speak, but a smile of praise immediately appeared on his face. However, before he could change his words and explain anything, Lu Ping's twin flying swords had already crisscrossed and slashed towards Chu Yuntian. Previously, when he had killed Nanyu Laozu in the South China Sea, it had mostly been because of the sword of the real spirit, Emoli, which had only given Lu Ping the confidence that he had the strength to fight against a great adept. However, when he had ambushed and killed Sweat Laozu in the forest, it had given Lu Ping a sufficient understanding of his own cultivation level and strength. He was just a great Dharma adept, and Lu Ping really did not need to worry too much about him. Although this time it was Lu Ping who had taken the initiative to attack, Chu Yuntian had already regained his composure and was not as flustered as before. Moreover, he was a great adept after all, and as an elder of the Green Sea Snakes, his strength was not weaker than Hanya Laozu's. Consecutive flying whirlwind technique, seeping water technique, drowning water technique, boiling water technique. The four major natural remarkable powers were displayed one after another in the twin flying swords. Lu Ping had obviously used Chu Yuntian as a touchstone to practice his own natural remarkable swordsmanship. This lad's natural remarkable swordsmanship was actually so brilliant. Although Chu Yuntian was secretly surprised that Lu Ping's natural remarkable swordsmanship was flowing at will in mid-air, like flowing mercury, one wave after another, causing one to lose sight of the other. However, he still looked at Lu Ping's sword scholar with a scrutinizing gaze. He did not think that Lu Ping would be able to do anything to him. The two of them fought for more than 10 rounds, and Chu Yuntian very quickly gained the upper hand. Although the snake spear was only a first calamity spiritual treasure, it was extremely strange and difficult to deal with. But at this moment, Chu Yuntian watched as Lu Ping cast the 4 sets of skills back and forth. Although Lu Ping's swordsmanship was becoming more and more fluid, Chu Yuntian wasn't so weak that he couldn't even suppress the 4 sets of skills. At this time, Chu Yuntian suddenly understood that the kid in front of him was not angry because of the previous humiliation, but most likely used him as a practice target. When Chu Yuntian first saw him, Lu Ping knew that there was a reason for Chu Yuntian's sudden attack just now. Chu Yuntian was not here to kill him. Otherwise, Chu Yuntian would not have waited for him to master the sky-boiling sword technique before making a move. However, Chu Yuntian definitely did not hold back in this kind of abrupt test. Those who were hit by this strange method would be severely injured even if they did not die. Perhaps Chu Yuntian had a way to remedy this, but Lu Ping agreed that Chu Yuntian's idea was nothing more than to avoid it. If not, then naturally he deserved to die. Lu Ping was annoyed, but for the sake of Samling, he could not shed all pretense of cordiality with the Green Sea Snakes. However, Lu Ping could not stop at this point. He must teach this old man a lesson. Chu Yuntian thought he had the situation under control. He chuckled and was about to explain to Lu Ping when he was suddenly interrupted by a loud commotion. His laughter was suppressed to an inaudible whisper. Chu Yuntian thought he had the situation under control. Chu Yuntian was stunned. This sound was the same as the one that suddenly sounded on the Qingming River. However, this time, the sound was very different. The sound of boiling water still rang clearly in Chu Yuntian's mind even though he had temporarily shut off his hearing. At this time, Chu Yuntian did not want to be entangled with Lu Ping anymore. Lu Ping's strength had already gained his recognition. If they continued to fight like this, even if Chu Yuntian wanted to explain, both parties would become enemies. Although the green sea snakes had never been afraid of anything, it was not a wise thing to make enemies with someone who might appear in the future. Looking at Xiao Baiyu's current status in the world of practitioners, this matter could not be clearer. And when Chu Yuntian wanted to explain something, he suddenly realized that only his mouth was moving. Even he himself could not hear the sound of his own words. This was not just the sound of his voice being suppressed. How could a great late Dharma adept not even be able to speak? Was this a divine will attack? Chu Yuntian was stunned. Only then did he feel that the sound of boiling water seemed to be getting louder and louder in his ears. However, his mind was getting hotter and hotter, as if it was a pot of water that was being heated. Then he felt as if he was trapped in a sky full of boiling water, like a fish that was about to be cooked. The thin water-flowing sword formed a vast ocean in midair. Every bubble that emerged from the ocean would turn into a large bubble that was condensed by the sword qi. When it exploded, it was like a burst of thousands of swords, catching people off guard. This was because no one could predict where the bubbles would come from under the water. Lu Ping saw that the boiling sky sword technique did not disappoint him. When the huge field of sword light was formed, it was like a pot of boiling water. Chu Yuntian was caught off guard and fell into it. Although it did not cause him any harm, he was at a loss for a moment. His divine will condensed. After all, Chu Yuntian was a great adept. After the initial panic, he immediately realized that the heat in his divine will was actually just an illusion. After he condensed his huge divine will, he suddenly shouted, "Break!" The snake spear suddenly turned into 81 thin snakes in midair, stirring up huge waves in the sword field formed by the dual flying swords. At the same time, his divine will suddenly turned into a strong gust of wind, sweeping the illusion in his mind into pieces. The supreme boiling sky sword technique was actually broken by Chu Yuntian in an instant. However, what Chu Yuntian did not notice was that just as the illusion in his mind was broken, a jade-green flame had already taken a step ahead of the illusion in a flash, disappearing from Lu Ping's divine will. And the sword field formed by the dual flying swords was actually broken. This time, Lu Ping did not continue to attack. Haha. There was a flash of fear in Chu Yuntian's heart, but he still put on an expression that said, "You're very good." Everything was already under the old man's control. He said, "Lu Xiaoyou's swordsmanship is really sharp. The old man's attack just now was too rash. However, I have an important task in the clan, so I have to have a better understanding of Lu Xiaoyou's strength. If you can't overcome the old man, the three little guys can only follow the old man back to Donghai. But now it seems that Lu Xiaoyou's strength is quite convincing." Lu Ping was delighted and said, "So, Senior, you agree to let Samling return to Donghai to accept the bloodline inheritance of the green sea snakes?" However, Chu Yuntian shook his head and said, "The three little guys are naturally not a problem. The problem is Lu Xiaoyu. If you want Samling to continue to follow us, you must pass the test of the clan. Now, the old man is the first test. In the future, you will have to face at least 2 more tests when you come to Donghai. This will depend on your own efforts. Of course, you'd better get to Donghai within 100 years. Otherwise, the inheritance of Samling may be affected." Chapter 1179. The battle between Lu Ping and Nanyu Laozu was a fight to the death, and the battle with Hanya Laozu was a hasty one. Only the battle with Chu Yuntian could be considered a battle that Lu Ping had long prepared for. In the battle with Nanyu Laozu, Lu Ping had relied on the sword of the real spirit, Emoli. In the battle with Hanya Laozu, Lu Ping had completely established the confidence to fight against late Dharma adepts. Therefore, in this battle with Chu Yuntian, Lu Ping could be considered to be at ease from start to finish. Chu Yuntian smiled and said, "Please let the three little ones out, Lu Xiaoyu. The old man has some gifts for them." The green sea snakes had always loved each other, and this was especially true for the younger generation. Previously, Chu Haitian and Chu Hailan had both given gifts when they met Samling. This time, Chu Yuntian was no exception. Lu Ping was naturally happy to let Samling benefit, so he opened the space portal. However, when Samling appeared, he looked at Chu Yuntian with an expression of hostility. Chu Yuntian laughed bitterly, and Lu Ping explained the situation to Samling. Only then did the expression on Samling's face lighten up. Although Samling looked like he was only 15 or 16 years old, he still had some of the nature of a child. Seeing that Chu Yuntian was originally an elder of the tribe, he already felt a sense of closeness in his heart. If not for the fact that he had suddenly become an enemy of Lu Ping, Samling would not have been so hostile towards Chu Yuntian. However, after Chu Yuntian explained the situation, and seeing the gifts that Chu Yuntian had given them, Samling thanked him and hid in a corner, giggling and comparing the gifts. Seeing Samling like this, Chu Yuntian also smiled and said to Lu Ping, "Lu Xiaoyu has put in a lot of effort for these three children. All three of them have condensed a 9th-grade golden core. Even among the third-generation disciples of the tribe, their status is equivalent to the status of direct descendants like Tsunami and Haitu. Now, among the fourth-generation disciples of the tribe, there is not a single one who has reached the peak of the core forging stage." Seeing that Lu Ping was smiling without saying anything, Chu Yuntian thought for a moment, then said, "I will not hide this from you, little friend. If Samling returns to the tribe in the future, I am afraid that you will have to be prepared for a more severe test." Lu Ping frowned and said, "What do you mean?" Chu Yuntian said with a smile, "The three children are too outstanding. Do you think the stubborn elders of our tribe will agree to let such outstanding children be their followers?" Lu Ping was silent, his expression uncertain. No one knew what he was thinking. Chu Yuntian chuckled and said, "That is all the old man has said. Lu Xiaoyu, you are on your own." In short, even if our tribe has the power to hinder you, little friend, the green sea snakes have their own rules. As long as you follow the rules, no one can say anything. As he spoke, he had disappeared. Lu Ping was not surprised at all. Therefore, Lu Ping could clearly sense that Chu Yuntian had just used an extremely brilliant water-escaping technique. If it was any other cultivator, perhaps they would feel bewildered by Chu Yuntian's miraculous way of disappearing. If they were more suspicious, they might even think that Chu Yuntian was hiding at the side, waiting for an opportunity to launch a sneak attack. Chu Yuntian had been forced into a slightly embarrassing situation by Lu Ping before. Chu Yuntian had used this secret technique this time to save some face. However, if he knew that Lu Ping had seen through him with just a glance, he would probably be even more depressed for a long time. Lu Ping's divine sense swept out, and all the cultivators hiding within a radius of dozens of miles retreated in shock. The battle between Lu Ping and Chu Yuntian just now had attracted the attention of many cultivators. At this time, those who knew Lu Tianping of the North Sea naturally knew that this person was a cultivator in the cultivation world who was not weaker than the heir of a holy land. Naturally, they did not dare to provoke him again. Even if there were those who did not know Lu Tianping of the North Sea, when they saw that Lu Ping was actually able to fight against a peak cultivator, they naturally did not dare to cause trouble. Seeing Lu Ping's divine sense sweeping out, everyone naturally avoided him. Lu Ping, who had mastered the third supreme divine sense, was naturally in a good mood. He did not care about those cultivators who were still far behind him, trying to find out his whereabouts. With a slight stomp of his feet, Lu Duguay's huge body shook slightly. Once again, he split the turbulent Qingming River and swam upstream. Lu Ping's original purpose for this trip was to perfect the east-flowing river sword skill. He wanted to create a peerless sword skill to be passed down to the future generations. But who would have thought that before he could master the east-flowing river sword skill, he would first create a peerless sword skill called Sky Boiling Sword Skill. However, before he could comprehend the sword technique, Lu Ping had to continue his journey in the Qingming River. However, this time, Lu Ping did not hide the existence of the Samling. In the water around the black tortoise, the Samling happily played with each other. As the spirits of the water, wherever the black tortoise passed, the Qingming River would be stirred up by them. However, with Lu Ping's suppression, there was no need to worry about the danger of the flood breaking the dam. The Qingming River was the largest river in the central region. Naturally, there were demons in the water. However, after noticing the previous battle and the aura of the top-level bloodline of the green sea snakes, most of the demons in the Qingming River chose to stay dormant and let the Samling stir up the wind and rain on the river. After Chu Yuntian's previous test, the green sea snakes temporarily admitted that Lu Ping had the qualification of Samling as an inheritor. However, Lu Ping also knew that after Chu Yuntian came to test him and brought back the news of Samling's current cultivation, especially the news that Samling had condensed a level 9 gold core, Lu Ping would inevitably encounter more difficulties in the green sea snakes in the future. Whether the green sea snakes approved of their clansmen becoming followers of others or not, they would unite to resist Lu Ping and take the Samling away from their clansmen under the principle of not breaking the rules of their clansmen. Even among the green sea snakes, how many disciples of the younger generation who had condensed a level 9 gold core could appear? And those who appeared were all cultivated with the power of their clansmen. How could they be willing to let go of them to become followers of others? Lu Ping and the others went along the river. After a long time, the surface of the Qingming River became smoother and wider. The river wind blew, and only the sound of the waves when the Samling played could be heard. The river became more and more quiet. The Samling seemed to notice something and seemed to be tired of playing. He shrunk his body and climbed onto the back of the black tortoise. Lu Ping stood at the front of the black tortoise's shell and looked at the river in front of him with bright eyes, as if he was enjoying the scenery of the river in the far distance. At this moment, Lu Ping suddenly sneered and said, "Is this interesting? When are you going to hide your head and show your tail?" A cold snort suddenly exploded in Lu Ping's ears. However, Lu Ping still looked calm and relaxed. However, the corner of his eye twitched slightly. So it was another great adept of the late Dharma stage. Only someone from a poor place like the North Sea who has never seen the world would act so ostentatiously on the Qingming River. Young lad, do you really think that the Central Plains practitioners are easy to deal with? An old voice came from the river. However, Lu Ping immediately turned his gaze to the void in the northeast direction and laughed. I was wondering who it was. So it's Ma Sith Great Mali. I haven't seen you for more than 100 years, but Elder Ma looks rather hale and hearty. It looks like you've already passed the second thunder trial and have another 200 years to live. As soon as Lu Ping finished speaking, an old man stepped out from the void in the northeast direction where Lu Ping could see. It was the fourth elder of the Tenma people, Ma Li, who had chased after Lu Ping and the others for thousands of miles in the west. At this moment, the fourth elder of the Tenma people seemed to have an unfathomable aura. It was obvious that he had already passed the second thunder trial and had become a great adept of the late Dharma stage. However, he did not look too good now. It was obvious that he had not expected Lu Ping to be able to see through his concealment with just one look. Following the appearance of Ma Sith Great, two more mid-Dharma adepts of the Tenma people appeared on the surface of the river a few hundred feet behind Lu Ping. It was obvious that they wanted to block off Lu Ping's escape route. Even though he was surrounded by a great adept and two adepts of the same level, Lu Ping did not panic at all. Instead, he smiled at Ma Sith Great and asked, I wonder if fourth elder has come all the way from the west to come here. Do you have any advice for me? Ma Sith Great's face was as dark as still water. He laughed coldly and said, The death of the fourth young master of the Sacred Lake tribe is very suspicious. The old man has come under the orders of the tribe leader to ask Lu Daoyu to follow the old man back to the west to clear himself of suspicion. Lu Ping smiled and said, Since fourth elder has come under the orders of the tribe leader, how can I not see the tribe leader's flag? Every major force in the world of practitioners like the Tenma people had their own set of rules to govern the world. This was also the embodiment of the status of these major forces in the world of practitioners. The token that the Tenma people used to travel around the world was the celestial horse flag, which was a fine horse flapping its wings and flying on the flag. Since Ma Sith Great wanted to capture Lu Ping and bring him back to the West, he naturally had to show his reasoning in the world of practitioners. Otherwise, if he lost his moral foundation, he would break the rules of the cultivation world. This might be a big trouble for the Tenma people. Moreover, Lu Tianping's reputation in the North Sea could be considered as the sun in the sky among the third-generation cultivators. If the Tenma people did not want to cause any trouble, they had to either capture or kill someone like Lu Ping in one fell swoop without leaving any evidence or future troubles, or they had to have solid evidence to uphold their moral principles. Otherwise, they would not easily make a move to avoid unnecessary trouble. It was true that the weak were prey to the strong in the world of practitioners. However, if the strength of the two parties was on par, they also had to pay attention to right and wrong. The formation of this rule could be considered as a merit that the 5 Holy Lands had strongly advocated in the Middle Mainland for tens of thousands of years. Ma Sith Great secretly clenched his teeth. Previously, when Lu Ping revealed their whereabouts with a shout, his previous plan could not be carried out. He did not expect that Lu Ping could actually discover the whereabouts of the Tenma people so easily. While he was secretly fearful, he did not expect that Lu Ping would have so many tails following behind him. If the Tenma people captured Lu Ping for no reason, with his current status in the cultivation world, it was hard to guarantee that it would cause a great disturbance. With the current power of the Tenma people, although they might not be afraid of it, it would still be a troublesome matter. Moreover, just like what Lu Ping had said, this time, Ma Sith Great came because of a personal grudge and not because of Ma Chenxi's death. Chapter 1180. During this period of time, Lu Ping had stirred up quite a storm in Central Plains. First, he had taken advantage of a giant tortoise to float on the Qingming River, which had already attracted the attention of some people in the Central Plains training world. Then, he had caused quite a stir by sealing the Qingming River in fog. Finally, his battle with Chu Yuntian had shocked many Central Plains practitioners. The 4th elder of the Tenma people, who was in Shihuang, had naturally received the news as well. Originally, according to the 4th elder's wishes, he had wanted nothing more than to summon his troops and charge into Central Plains to kill the junior who had humiliated him many years ago. Unfortunately, at this time, the leader of the Tenma people was planning something big. All the Tenma people were doing their best for this matter, and the 4th elder did not want to cause trouble at this critical juncture. However, this matter could not be carried out with great fanfare. If the 4th elder decided to carry it out in private, there would be no one to restrain him at this moment. Thus, the 4th elder summoned his 2 direct descendants and quietly entered the cultivation world of the Central Plains. Originally, the 4th elder was not even willing to call his 2 descendants. This way, it would be difficult to keep this matter a secret in the future. Moreover, the 4th elder was confident that with his current strength, it would not be difficult for him to deal with a practitioner who had just entered the mid-Dharma stage. However, as a precaution, especially after hearing that Lu Ping had withstood a few blows from the great practitioner, Chu Yuntian, and seemed to have passed some kind of test set by this great practitioner, the 4th elder was much more cautious and decided to bring 2 of his descendants who were at the mid-Dharma stage as his assistants. With a great Dharma adept and 2 mid-Dharma adepts working together, there should not be any more accidents, right? Let's work together and finish this quickly. Ma the Great made up his mind and shouted at the 2 Tenma people. The life weapon in his hand, which had been refined from his own horn, was already thrusting towards Lu Ping's chest. After Ma the Great had entered the late Dharma stage, this life weapon, which had been refined from Ma the Great's horn, had finally passed its first trial. This allowed Ma the Great's power to increase by 30% when he used various spells. Just as the heavenly horned horse spur was about to hit Lu Ping's chest, Elder Ma Si had already landed on the river. He gently stepped on the surface of the river and landed on the ground. At the same time, the 2 mid-Dharma stage heavenly horse cultivators behind Lu Ping also used their mystic treasures and spells to support Elder Ma Si's pincer attack. At the same time, two whirlwinds appeared under their feet and they landed on the river water. In Lu Ping's senses, the moment the three of them landed on the surface of the river, it was as if the entire Qingming River had been shaken. Then, he saw the waves surge and the entire river began to shake violently. Life Great Spell, Galloping 10,000 Horses. Although this was only a life great spell of the Tenma people, there was something special about this great spell. It could be used as a formation to unleash the full power of the Galloping 10,000 Horses. All the adepts with the blood of the Tenma people could unleash the power of the Galloping 10,000 Horses, together with the formation. Furthermore, the more adepts there were of the Tenma people, the more compatible this great spell would be, and the more powerful it would be. There were even rumors that the power of this great spell was limitless. Even the most powerful great spell could only be destroyed when it encountered the Galloping 10,000 Horses of the Dharma stage, when it was unleashed by dozens of Tenma people. When a great adept and two adepts of the same level as Lu Ping used the Galloping 10,000 Horses together, the power of the great spell multiplied. Even Lu Ping, who had always been calm and collected, could not help but gasp when he saw the Galloping 10,000 Horses Dao soldier formation of the Tenma people, which could be said to be the foundation of the clan. It was rumored that the entire clan of the Tenma people could be included in the Galloping 10,000 Horses Dao soldier formation. If this was true, even those who had achieved the divine spirit level would have to retreat in front of this Dao soldier formation. If this was on land, Lu Ping could only resist or escape. However, these three Tenma people were currently using the Galloping 10,000 Horses Dao soldier formation on the surface of the Qingming River. With the help of the mighty river water, the power of the Galloping 10,000 Horses Dao soldier was originally not inferior to the power on land. However, they had forgotten that Lu Ping had cultivated water elemental spells. In the path of water, Lu Ping's ability could increase by 3 levels for no reason. On land, Lu Ping could not fight against the Galloping 10,000 Horses Dao soldier. However, on the water, Lu Ping could take drastic measures. The moment the three Tenma people stepped on the river water, they suddenly felt the river water under their feet disappear. Lu Ping had already tried to empty the river water under their feet to weaken the power of the Galloping 10,000 Horses Dao soldier. Of course, this was just a trick. The Galloping 10,000 Horses Dao soldier would not be broken so easily unless Lu Ping could drain the Qingming River dry in one breath. Behind Lu Ping, huge waves rolled back and went against the flow. In front of him, the waves surged and rolled down. It was a pincer attack. He could not let the power of the three powers merge into one. Otherwise, once the Dao soldier formation was formed, not only would it completely trap Lu Ping, the power of the Dao soldier formation would also increase. At this moment, Lu Ping pushed the thin water-flowing sword's hilt with one hand, and the huge waves behind him surged into the sky. He had cast the Great River Flowing East Sword art. The two swords danced in the air, and with the help of the Qingming River's momentum and Lu Ping's understanding of the Great River Flowing East Sword art, he unleashed the full power of the Great River Flowing East Sword art. He actually managed to suppress the two heavenly Pegasus cultivators behind him. However, the two Tenma people behind him were only cooperating. The real threatening power was Ma the Great's Galloping Flood Wave. After Lu Ping threw out the dual flying swords behind him, most of his attention was on Ma the Great. As Lu Ping suddenly raised his hands, the water of the Qingming River under his feet suddenly rose by 10 feet. Then, Lu Ping straightened his hands and pushed them upstream. The huge waves of the Qingming River rose against the flow and rose higher and higher. It was as if the Milky Way was flowing in reverse, crashing towards Ma the Great's attack. Innate great power, art of blue waves. However, under the pincer attack, no matter how powerful Lu Ping's power was, it was still beyond his capabilities. Although the two Tenma people's power was suppressed by Lu Ping, Ma the Great still managed to suppress Lu Ping's art of blue waves. The two Tenma people behind him could retreat, but they still guarded Lu Ping's path of retreat. However, Lu Ping couldn't retreat at this moment. He could only take on Ma the Great's attack head-on. Amidst the loud bang, the two huge waves collided with each other. The water splashed in all directions like crystal pearls, creating many deep holes on the embankments on both sides of the river. The water of the Qingming River, which was flowing towards both sides of the river due to the collision of the huge waves, managed to hide from the embankments and swept towards both sides of the river, drowning the flat fields within a radius of a few miles in one fell swoop. A pale color flashed across Lu Ping's face, but soon it returned to normal. On the other hand, Ma the Great's expression didn't look good either. Although Lu Ping suffered a loss from the pincer attack of the three Tenma people, he still managed to successfully stop the Dao soldier formation of the three Tenma people. Clang. The netherwater sword that was lurking around Lu Ping tried its best to block the horn that was flying towards him. However, at this moment, Lu Ping was in a state where he had used up all his strength but had yet to recover. Although the netherwater sword had managed to block the horn, under the tremendous force, Lu Ping's body was directly knocked into the river, creating a huge ditch that was 10 feet deep and hundreds of feet long on the surface of the river. Taking advantage of the fact that the ditch was filled up by the water, Lu Ping's entire body was already in a sorry state. Don't hold back anymore, lest the night is fraught with trouble. Although the four of them had only exchanged blows for a moment, the commotion caused by it was definitely not small. The cultivation world of the Central Plains was filled with cultivators and there were countless sections. There was no telling when someone would intervene. This was definitely the territory of the human race, so even though the Tenma people were powerful, they might not be welcomed by others. However, just as Ma the Great finished speaking, he saw the corners of Lu Ping's mouth twitch slightly. Ma the Great was slightly startled, and then he heard a loud shout, "Aya, how shameless, 3 against 1. What our Yuan clan hates the most is bullying the few with numbers. Fellow Taoist who uses a sword, our old Yuan clan just so happens to be itching to fight today, so I'll help you block the 2 behind you. You're pretty lucky, remember to owe our old Yuan clan a favor." Ma the Great's expression changed drastically, as if he could already tell who the person was from the voice. He opened his mouth and shouted at the 2 juniors, "Be careful." Then, as if he wanted to say something, he saw that Lu Ping's 2 flying swords had already swept up an earth-shattering sword cry, completely suppressing Ma the Great's voice. After that, the entire Qingming River started to boil. Ma the Great suddenly felt as if he had fallen into a pot of boiling water, and every bubble that emerged from the river could explode into a bunch of sword sparks, as if he was going to be sliced into 1,000 pieces and made into a pot of horse meat soup. Ma the Great was greatly shocked, and could no longer care about the 2 juniors. He pulled out a horsetail whisk from the space behind him, and swept it in all directions, repelling all the sword sparks that were spreading towards him. When he raised his eyes, his expression instantly became even more unsightly. Just as Lu Ping made his move, an 8-feet-tall giant holding a 10-feet-long wrought copper rod jumped out from nowhere, and swung it down. However, 2 rod shadows flashed in midair, and they fell on the heads of 2 Tenma people, blocking the 2 who were about to attack behind Lu Ping to support Ma the Great. Lu Ping laughed loudly and said, "Thank you for your help, Brother Yuan. How should I address you, Brother Yuan? When this matter is over, I'll treat you to a drink." The giant was unstoppable, and his wrought copper rod transformed into hundreds of rod shadows in midair, firmly encircling the 2 Tenma people cultivators who were at the same level as him. Hearing Lu Ping's words, the giant laughed and said, "Lu Tianping of the North Sea, I, Old Yuan, know you. I, Old Yuan, will never change my name or my surname. I am Yuan Long of the Great Spiritual Ape Clan. I heard that you're quite capable, and I originally came here to find you for a fight. However, I didn't expect to see you being besieged. You owe me today, so you should treat me to a drink. However, I, Old Yuan, have always been fond of wine. If you can't take out some fine wine, I, Old Yuan, won't be satisfied." The Great Spiritual Ape Clan was indeed the Great Spiritual Ape Clan. Chapter 1181. Looking at the few great adepts who had fought with Lu Ping, Nanyu Laozu had been killed by Lu Ping using the identity of Wen Yuan, while the death of Hanya Laozu was only known to the Longhuai ancestor alone. After that, when he had fought with Chu Yuntian, both parties had merely stopped at the appropriate point. Although Lu Ping had secretly gained the upper hand, even Chu Yuntian himself probably did not know that Lu Ping had held back when he had used the boiling sky sword technique. In other words, up until now, Lu Ping's ability to fight a late Dharma adept had not been known to anyone. But now, the opportunity had come. This battle with Ma Sith Great was the perfect opportunity for Lu Ping to show off his abilities to the practitioners of Central Plains. Because of the sudden intervention of the spiritual ape Yuan Long, Lu Ping had taken the initiative to use the boiling sky sword technique that he had just mastered, gaining the upper hand in one fell swoop and trapping Ma Sith Great within the sword realm that was formed by this supreme sword technique. However, without the assistance of the spiritual treasure and the natal gentian formation, Lu Ping's abilities would undoubtedly be reduced by a third. But Lu Ping was not afraid at all. His pair of flying swords controlled the sword realm tightly and did his best to trap Ma Sith Great within it. However, Ma Sith Great was, after all, a late Dharma adept. Born as a Tenma people, he had a strong level of practice. How could he be easily trapped by Lu Ping's techniques? Just as the horsetail whisk had swept open a space within the sword realm, the Pegasus horn had already pierced towards the space within the sword realm. But at this moment, the river water beneath Ma Sith Great's feet bubbled and a bunch of bubbles rose from the water surface before bursting together. Countless sword auras shot out and instantly cut the space that the horsetail whisk had swept open into pieces. Ma Sith Great was shocked. He stomped down with both his feet, forming two huge Pegasus legs that were formed from spiritual chi, and stomped down. Amidst the crackling sounds, the countless sword auras were all crushed by the spiritual chi legs. The spiritual chi legs were also cut by the sword auras and finally shattered into pieces in the air. Ma Sith Great let out a muffled groan and the shoes on his feet suddenly shattered into pieces that fell from midair. Another few bubbles appeared. This time, Elder Tian Ma did not dare to use his spiritual chi legs to block the sword auras. Instead, a pair of spiritual chi wings suddenly appeared on his back. Elder Tian Ma's body was abnormally light as he flew in all directions within the sword realm, dodging the fierce sword auras that were coming at him. Stepping on swallows was one of the special techniques of the Tenma people. For a moment, Lu Ping's sword techniques could not keep up with Elder Tian Ma's flying speed. However, the boiling sky sword technique was not something that could be dodged so easily. Just as Elder Tian Ma secretly let out a sigh of relief and was prepared to use all his strength to break Lu Ping's sword techniques, he suddenly felt his entire body start to heat up and his head start to feel dizzy. Could it be because of the sword realm? But for someone like Elder Tian Ma, not to mention a pot of boiling water, even if he was in the depths of a volcano, he might not be able to harm a single hair on his body. How could he be so hot that he fainted? No, it wasn't because of the sword realm. It was because of his spiritual sense. Elder Tian Ma's spiritual sense had been accumulated for nearly 1,000 years and had long become one with his mind. Perhaps the strength of his spiritual sense was not as strong as Lu Ping's, but the familiarity with it was something that Lu Ping's 200 years of experience could not compare to. Thus, when Elder Tian Ma felt that his spiritual sense was being attacked without a sound, even so, Elder Tian Ma did not know how to react to this strange attack. At this moment, Elder Tian Ma's spiritual sense seemed to have seen a ray of light. Was it the light of a fire? Even Ma the Great could not see it clearly for a moment. Then, a wave of intense pain caused Elder Tian Ma to cry out in pain to lessen the pain that came from his soul. Then, a huge bubble appeared in the middle of the Qingming River. It took this opportunity to swallow Ma the Great whole into the bubble. Numerous sword chis burst out. Elder Ma Si, who was affected by the divine sense attack, could only weave the horsetail whisk into a net in a hurry, firmly protecting himself in it. At the same time, Ma the Great shrunk his spiritual sense as much as possible and even hid it under the protection of his Dharma idol. This way, he was finally able to break free from the restriction of Lu Ping's spiritual sense attack. Amidst the sound of chi-chi, the fine strands of the horsetail whisk were cut off by the sword chi. Elder Ma Si did not dare to be negligent anymore. He stretched out his hand to recall the single-horned spiritual treasure. Then he abruptly stabbed upwards and broke the bubble. However, the horsetail whisk had become a bald tail. This magic treasure could be said to be completely useless. At this moment, the fourth elder could not care about this magic treasure that was refined from a part of his body. Although he had broken free from the attack of Lu Ping's supreme divine sword technique, he was still trapped in the sword domain. However, the fourth elder had sensed something when he used his natal spiritual treasure to attack randomly in the air. He immediately leapt up and swung his horn upwards. A huge Pegasus had appeared behind the fourth elder, and the horn just happened to land on the head of the Pegasus. The heavenly horse leapt up and let out a long neigh towards the sky. Then, it suddenly charged upwards, and the single horn on its head grew larger and larger. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the sword domain all gathered towards the single horn, and then formed a huge single horn in midair. Amidst the loud bang, Lu Ping felt the thin water unstoppable sword tremble violently. It was almost out of Lu Ping's control. Then, Lu Ping flew back and saw the sword domain formed by the dual flying swords in front of him suddenly break. Ma the Great followed behind a huge Pegasus idol and broke out of the encirclement. Once again, it was the Pegasus clan's heirloom's great skill, the sky-piercing. But after Elder Ma Si summoned his Pegasus avatar and combined it with the single-horned spiritual treasure, the power of the skill was like a tiger that had grown wings. It actually broke through Lu Ping's peerless sword skill. However, just as Ma the Great broke out of the encirclement, there was suddenly a slight airflow in the air. Immediately, the fourth elder, who had just released his divine will from his body, changed his expression. This was because Lu Ping's supreme divine sword technique was a kind of secret magical power that coexisted with swordsmanship and divine will. Under the attack of Lu Ping's powerful divine will, even the fourth elder, who was at the late Dharma stage, had no choice but to retract his divine will. It was only under the protection of the Pegasus idol that he was able to escape the tracking of his divine will. It was precisely because of this that before he broke through Lu Ping's sword domain, Ma the Great did not dare to release his divine will. And in the moment that he broke out of the encirclement, he did not notice that Lu Ping had already hidden the water seer formless sword. By the time the fourth elder released his divine will and sensed the strange fluctuations in the air around him, it was already too late. The water seer sword was already 3 feet in front of him, heading straight for his face. In his desperation, the fourth elder only had time to summon his protective magical power. At the same time, black hair suddenly grew from the back of his neck and stretched forward to entangle the water seer sword. However, although the shapeless sword technique was mainly used for sneak attacks, it was still a powerful magical sword technique after all. How could it not be used to fight head-on? The moment the water seer sword appeared, 5 sword shadows flashed out in a row. The long black hair that was entangling the water seer sword was instantly twisted into a mess. Then, the water seer sword pierced through 9 layers of protective gang chi and broke through the fourth elder's protective magical power. It was a pity that the water seer sword was already at the end of its flight after breaking through the fourth elder's Pegasus idol and his protective magical power. It only managed to blind Ma the Great's left eye before it could advance any further. The Pegasus single horn smashed down and knocked the water seer sword away. With only one eye left, Ma the Great glared fiercely at Lu Ping but did not dare to fight him again. Instead, he suddenly turned and flew towards the west. At the same time, the Pegasus single horn suddenly shot out. With a series of clangs, the spiritual ape's rod net that was blocking the 2 mid-Dharma adepts of the Tenma people was suddenly broken. 2 figures flew out from the gap and followed closely behind Ma the Great as they flew towards the west. "Hey, our old Yuan hasn't had his fun yet, why are you running away?" Suddenly having his magical power broken by Ma the Great and letting his 2 opponents escape, the spiritual ape Yuan Long was greatly disappointed. He could not help but shout, "Coward, if you have the guts, then let's see who's the winner before you leave." Immediately after, the spiritual ape suddenly changed his target and said to Lu Ping, "I say, why did you let that old horse go? You didn't even give old Yuan a chance to fight." Lu Ping did not know whether to laugh or cry. He spread his hands and said, "After all, he is a grand adept. If he has made up his mind to leave, how can I stop him?" A grand adept had been defeated in a fair and square battle with Lu Ping. Even one of his eyes was blinded. This was a legendary moment in the entire world of cultivation. Now, this spiritual ape was actually complaining that Lu Ping had interrupted his fun. However, Lu Ping immediately understood this fellow's purpose. The spiritual ape rolled his eyes and a silly smile flashed across his rough face. He said, "Hee hee, our old Yuan helped you by stopping those 2 horses. Now that you've interrupted our fun, it's time for you to return the favor. Come, let's have a fight first." After saying that, Yuan Long stretched out his hand and summoned his 1,000-pound rod. He got into a stance and was about to attack. Lu Ping quickly waved his hand and said, Wait. We were first surrounded by 3 Tenma people, and then we had a huge battle with a grand adept elder of the Tenma people. How much strength do we have left now? Don't tell me that your old Yuan family takes advantage of others when they are down?" Yuan Long was instantly enraged. He patted his chest and said, "Nonsense. Just because of what you said, our old Yuan family will have a fight with you. However, our old Yuan family has always been fair. I'll give you a few days to recuperate. When you've recovered, we'll have a good fight again." Lu Ping knew that the spiritual ape family had always been stubborn. This battle would most likely be unavoidable. Thus, he could only say helplessly, "Fine. It's just that the battle here has definitely attracted the attention of many people. We can't stay here for long." Yuan Long chuckled strangely and said, "It just so happens that our old Yuan family is also tired. Let's rest on your black tortoise for a while. Our old Yuan family remembers that you once said that you would treat us to wine. However, let me say this first. If the wine isn't good, don't blame us for making fun of you." Chapter 1182. If the fact that Lu Ping had the green sea snake by his side and that his battle with Chu Yuntian had caused the training community of Central Plains to acknowledge Lu Ping's strength and reputation, then his battle with the 4th elder of the Tenma people, where he not only defeated him but also blinded one of his eyes, had caused a huge uproar in the training community. Previously, other than the heirs of the Holy Lands who had fought with Lu Ping, the rest of the people still had doubts about the true strength of this North Sea practitioner. After all, when Lu Ping had fought with these heirs of the Holy Lands, most of the time, he had stopped at the right moment or even ended in a draw. As for these heirs who had fought with Lu Ping before, no matter how arrogant they were, their evaluation of Lu Ping's true strength was that he was not inferior to a certain family. Although this statement was vague, it was definitely not wrong. Many people could naturally sense that Lu Ping had more or less held back when he fought with them, but there was no reason for them to help Lu Ping. Moreover, these practitioners had their own thoughts. If one day, there was a practitioner whose strength was similar to theirs who became enemies with this Lu Tianping, wouldn't it be a happy thing if they were to suffer a huge loss at the hands of this fellow because they had misjudged his strength? It was precisely because of this that it was difficult for the training community of Central Plains to determine the true strength of Lu Ping. After a long time, they naturally thought that Lu Ping was deliberately hiding his strength, and that his true strength might not be that high. Now that Qing Mingjiang and the 4th elder of the Tenma people had a fair and square victory, those who had previously doubted Lu Ping's strength were instantly silenced. It was not that there were no examples of a mid-Dharma adept challenging a late Dharma adept, and there were even many who could fight with a late Dharma adept and retreat unscathed. However, there had been no one who could win a battle since Xiao Baiyu, the sky-splitting sword saint from 300 to 400 years ago. Furthermore, the 4th elder of the Heavenly Pegasus clan was not someone ordinary people could compare to. He was a genuine great divine ability cultivator, a top expert in the cultivation world. Meanwhile, Lu Ping was still traveling upstream along the Azure Netherworld River. On the broad back of the black tortoise, Yuan Long wrinkled his nose and glanced at the black tortoise beneath his feet. Then he said to Lu Ping, "You have part of the tyrannical tortoise's bloodline. I heard that you have 3 little green sea snakes following you. If I didn't know that you're Lu Tianping of the Northern Sea, I'm afraid that ordinary people would think that you're a cultivator from the spirit-taming sect." After Lu Daguay had merged with part of the tyrannical tortoise's bloodline, Although his own potential had increased significantly, he still could not perfectly hide the aura of the tyrannical tortoise's bloodline within his body. Therefore, it was very easy for others to notice that he was hiding something. Lu Ping smiled and did not say anything. With a flip of his hand, Linglong's wine cauldron appeared in Lu Ping's hand. Then, it floated in midair and suddenly expanded. Linglong climbed out of the wine cauldron. Lu Ping first glanced at Yuan Long, then said to Lu Ping in a bad mood, "Why did you call Linglong out? Don't you know that Linglong is preparing for her second thunder trial? This is not a time to disturb her." Yuan Long's eyes widened the moment Linglong's wine cauldron appeared. When he saw Linglong emerge from the wine cauldron, his eyes shone brightly and his face darkened. Lu Ping did not pay much attention to Yuan Long's expression. Instead, he said to Linglong, "I know that you have improved very quickly. However, without me to help you summon the thunder trial, how will you become a second tribulation spirit treasure? If you want to pass the thunder trial, you will have a lot of time to prepare. When you are completely prepared, we can summon the thunder trial. However, we have guests now. First, take out a few of your treasured spirit wines. I will use them to entertain the guests." Linglong had been by Lu Ping's side all these years. It could be said that she had collected and brewed quite a lot of spirit wines. Normally, only Lu Ping would drink them to his heart's content. In addition, only his followers, such as Debeo, could benefit from it. Naturally, the rest of his friends would only give him a limited amount of spirit wine. Therefore, Linglong had collected quite a lot. Is this the imitation spirit treasure of the treasured cauldron of heaven and earth? A surprised voice came from the spiritual ape beside Lu Ping. He could not help but ask. Lu Ping was stunned. Only then did he notice that Yuan Long's expression was a little strange. He could not help but nod and say, "Indeed, I once found Linglong in the Yingtian dojo. Since then, Linglong has been by my side." Back then, the North Sea cultivators had gathered in the Yingtian mountain range and secretly entered the Yingtian dojo. They had unearthed the inheritance of the Yingtian faction. More than 100 years had passed since then. Although the secret back then was not known by everyone in the cultivation world of the Central Plains, there was no longer a need to hide it. Therefore, Lu Ping had to admit that he was very carefree. Moreover, in the cultivation world of the North Sea, there had been many rumors about Zhenling's rise over the years. Among them, there was a widely spread view among the major sections. That was, when all the sects had gathered in the Yingtian dojo, the biggest secret had been obtained by Zhenling alone. It was precisely because of this that Zhenling soared to the sky, leaving the various sects in the North Sea far behind. Even Lu Ping's rise was believed by many to be due to him obtaining the inheritance of the Yingtian faction. Zhenling naturally did not explain anything about this. When everyone had entered the Yingtian dojo together, even if Zhenling had obtained all the benefits, it was still due to Zhenling's own ability and luck. How could the other sects not have obtained the Linglong wine cauldron and the mountain-splitting axe? How could they not have obtained the abundant void mirror, the medium-sized spirit stone vein, and the Dharma form soul? The Yingtian faction. Back then, it was said that the Yingtian faction had indeed created a replica of the treasured cauldron of heaven and earth. I didn't expect it to be this wine cauldron. Not bad, not bad, not bad at all. Yuan Long said it was not bad, but there was a hint of regret in his eyes. Lu Ping had seen it clearly from the side, but Yuan Long did not deliberately point it out. Lu Ping was not in a position to ask directly, so he only gestured for Linglong to take out a few fine wines from her collection. No matter what, if Yuan Long had not stepped in to fend off the two mid-Dharma adepts of the Tenma people at the last moment, it would have been difficult for Lu Ping and Ma Sith Great to even escape unscathed from this battle, let alone emerge victorious. As such, Lu Ping was more than willing to pay for this wine. Oh, the 100-flower dew. The brewing of this wine requires top-grade spirit flowers to be brewed using a secret technique. If the secret technique is used but the spirit flowers are not old enough, the quality of the wine will be greatly reduced. Yuan Long's eyes lit up when he saw the first jar of wine that Lu Ping took out. However, it was obvious that he did not believe that Lu Ping would be able to gather 100 types of spirit flower dew of sufficient age. This 100-flower dew did not mean that he could just randomly find 100 types of spirit flowers. There were only a few hundred types of spirit flowers that could be used to brew this 100-flower dew, and each type of spirit flower was considered rare among spirit herbs. It was not easy to gather all of them. Of course, if one did not care about the age of the spirit flowers, it would be much easier. When Lu Ping heard Yuan Long's question, he did not refute it. He only opened the seal on the jar of wine, and the rich aroma of the spirit flower wine made Yuan Long salivate. However, this was just the beginning. In a short while, Lu Ping took out another 10 jars of spirit wine from the wine cauldron. Some were big, some were small, some were big, some were small. Every jar of spirit wine made Yuan Long's eyes light up. However, just 5 days later, Yuan Long, as usual, poured a small jar of spirit wine into the mouth of a core forging adept. It was enough to shorten their training time by 2 months. He shouted, "Good wine, really good wine. In these 3 days I, old Yuan, have drunk all the good wine that I have not tasted in the past 300 to 400 years. When I return to the northern ice plains, let's see who dares to compete with me in drinking more spirit wine." Lu Ping looked at Yuan Long's excited expression, and the corner of his eye twitched. He had long heard that the wise great apes were the best at drinking, but he did not expect that in just 3 days, Yuan Long would have drunk almost 20 types of spirit wine that he had specially prepared. One had to know that this spirit brew was not ordinary. Apart from the rich spirit qi contained within it, which required the practitioner to spend a lot of time to refine, the alcohol was also extremely potent. Even if a normal Dharma adept drank too much of it, he or she would inevitably experience dizziness and confusion. However, this giant ape in front of him was obviously not affected by this. In fact, in the short span of 5 days, he had drunk more than 20 types of spirit wine. Yet, Lu Ping did not feel any spiritual qi leaking out of Yuan Long's body. However, the spirit wine contained so much spiritual qi that even Lu Ping himself could not completely refine it in a short span of 5 days. This meant that the giant ape in front of him must have a secret technique that allowed him to temporarily store spiritual qi as a backup. It was a good thing that Lu Ping had been careful. Among the 20 types of spirit wine, Lu Ping had only taken a small portion of each. If not for this, from Lu Ping's point of view, Yuan Long was obviously drinking as much as he could. Furthermore, Yuan Long was not a glutton. Every time he finished drinking a type of spirit wine, he would give an evaluation of the spirit wine. This evaluation was very appropriate for Lu Ping, who had participated in the brewing of the spirit wine. Furthermore, Yuan Long had another skill, and that was that every time he drank a type of spirit wine, he would be able to clearly describe the spirit herbs used to brew the spirit wine, and even the age of the spirit herbs. This made Lu Ping very impressed. Yuan Long drank to his heart's content, and he smashed the jar of spirit wine in his hand onto the black tortoise's back. After that, he pointed at Lu Ping and roared with laughter. "Ha, Lu Tianping of the North Sea, 5 days is enough for you to recuperate and build up your strength. Today, we'll decide the victor between us." Lu Ping was astounded and he smiled. "Brother Yuan, you've drunk so much spirit wine. It wouldn't be too late for us to compete after you've refined the spirit energy in the wine." Yuan Long's expression turned solemn as he said, "Brother Lu, it's enough to show that you have an outstanding disposition. However, Brother Lu doesn't understand our great ape clan well enough." Lu Ping said curiously, "Oh, I'd like to hear the details." Yuan Long grinned and said, "If an ordinary person were to drink so much fine wine in such a short period of time, they'd need at least 10 days to properly cultivate. However, our great ape clan's battle prowess increases the more fine wine we drink. Not only does that fine wine not weaken our strength in the slightest, it actually increases it greatly. So, Brother Lu, feel free to make your move." Lu Ping didn't know about this and he smiled. Just as he was about to say something, Yuan Long unexpectedly smashed his club towards his head. He said with a smile, "Brother Lu, you'd better be careful. Our great ape clan doesn't care about who moves first. Once we start fighting, I'm sure we'll try to seize the initiative." The club's power was so great that even Lu Ping didn't dare to take it head-on. However, Lu Ping didn't dodge. Under Yuan Long's astonished gaze, the Lu Ping before him was suddenly smashed into pieces, and then turned into a puddle of water that flowed down the black tortoise's shell. The art of crossing the sea in heaven was being executed right in front of the great ape clan's eyes, and this Yuan Long actually didn't notice it in the slightest. However, Lu Ping had already appeared in the air 300 feet away. His pair of flying swords drew a streak of light in the air and directly aimed for Yuan Long's neck. He smiled and said, "It's impolite not to reciprocate. Brother Yuan, take this sword of mine." Chapter 1183. The great intelligent apes were famous for two hobbies in the cultivation world. The first was that they valued wine as much as their life. In the cultivation world, no matter what kind of fine wine there was, they would rarely fail to recognize it. There had even been incidents in the cultivation world where sects and clans were exterminated because of a fine wine that the great intelligent apes had never tasted or heard of before. Their ultimate goal was simply to obtain that fine wine, or to see that fine wine that they had never seen before. The second was that they were madly addicted to battle. The great intelligent apes respected but never feared the strong. Moreover, they loved to challenge the strong in the cultivation world. They never killed the innocent, but they would use all kinds of workable or unworkable reasons to start a fight or join a fight. Therefore, the number of the great intelligent apes might be slightly inferior to that of the green sea snake race and the five elements peacock race, but they never lacked in the number of strong cultivators. They even had a little more than the other top demon clans. However, if one believed that the great intelligent apes were crude and unintelligent, then all those who held this kind of thinking would definitely suffer a great loss at the hands of the great intelligent apes. The reason why the great intelligent apes were called wise was because of their intelligence. Do not be fooled by the appearance of the great intelligent apes. Even if they took human form, they were usually strong giants, just like Yuan Long, who was currently fighting against Lu Ping. They looked simple and honest, but if that was really the case, the great intelligent apes would have been destroyed countless times by the cultivation world that was full of deception. How could they become one of the top forces in the cultivation world, one of the few large demon clans that could rival the 6 holy lands of the human race? Just like now, the great intelligent apes had given Lu Ping 5 days to recuperate, but he had also taken the opportunity to drink all the spiritual wine that Lu Ping had collected. Although the spiritual wine could not be converted into an increase in Yuan Long's cultivation in a short period of time, he could use a secret technique to store pure spiritual qi that could be refined into vital essence at any time. In the long run, the pure spiritual qi was naturally the most suitable to be used to improve one's cultivation. However, in the short run, the pure spiritual qi could be used to quickly replenish the consumption of vital essence and could also be used to prolong a cultivator's fighting time. Yuan Long knew very well that although he was looking forward to fighting against Lu Ping, after witnessing Lu Ping blinding one of the eyes of the great cultivator Tenma people, he clearly realized the gap between them. If they were to really fight, Yuan Long would most likely lose. However, the more this was so, the more the blood of the great ape flowing in his veins boiled, and the more he longed for this battle. The spiritual qi contained in the fine spiritual wine was the biggest bargaining chip to prolong his fight against Lu Ping of the time. Even if he wasn't a match for Lu Tianping, he still had to fight. The longer he persisted in the hands of an expert, the more he would be able to obtain. So, since Lu Tianping wanted to treat him to a drink, then he would think of a way to drink to his heart's content before the battle. Yuan Long succeeded, but in the end, he still failed. The two of them battled above the Qingming River for 6 hours. During the last 2 hours, Yuan Long even realized that Lu Ping had gone easy on Lu Ping so that Yuan Long could enjoy the battle to his heart's content. On the other hand, Yuan Long was so engrossed in the battle that he didn't notice Lu Ping's presence at all. 6 hours later, Yuan Long's limbs were tied up by Lu Ping's Qingming River water. Taking advantage of the moment when Yuan Long broke free, the invisible water sword touched Yuan Long's forehead, and the long sword disappeared again. Awesome, awesome! The great ape wise did not have the slightest regret after losing. Instead, he shouted in joy. For the great ape wise who loved to fight, a hearty battle was more important than winning or losing. This was also the reason why the great ape wise's great master, Pure Yang Laozu Yuan Pokong, liked to fight in groups. With the methods of this Yuan Pokong Laozu, it was very difficult to find an opponent in a one-on-one fight in the world of cultivation. Only in a group fight could he find some satisfaction. The two of them landed on the back of the black tortoise. The great ape wise scratched the back of his head, and a 1-foot-tall stone jar appeared in his hand. Yuan Long patted the stone jar with his fan-sized palm and said, "I, old Yuan, have drunk so much wine from you, Brother Lu, and I feel very sorry. Fortunately, I still have a jar of the great ape wise's top treasure, monkey wine. I want to treat you to a drink." When Lu Ping heard it was monkey wine, his eyes immediately lit up. He asked curiously, "Is it really monkey wine? It's an incredible treasure in the world of cultivation." Yuan Long smiled complacently and said, "Isn't that so? Although our brilliant ape clan has monkey wine, the production is extremely limited. With our old Yuan status, it's already not easy to get a small jug every 10 years. Lu Ping looked at the 1-foot-tall stone jar in Yuan Long's hand and hesitated. 10 years for a small jar. How many years did it take for Yuan Long to save up such a big jar? Should I take it easy later? I don't want to drink all of his treasure. However, this monkey wine is a rare treasure in the world of cultivation that can strengthen the muscles and bones. It has an obvious effect on a cultivator's physical body. It would be a pity if I missed this golden opportunity." But, immediately after, Lu Ping felt that his previous hesitation had been thrown out the window. Yuan Long continued, "But this jar is different. It was stolen from our former general before we left the North Ice Fields. In the past, we might not have been willing to invite Brother Lu to drink with us. But this time, we can drink to our heart's content." "How good. In that case, I have no choice but to accept. It just so happens that I'm also drooling over the world's famous monkey wine. The former general of the great ape wise, wasn't that the pure Yang Laozu Yuan Pokong who loved to fight in groups? No wonder Yuan Long was able to find such a big jar of monkey wine. Since that was the case, Lu Ping naturally wouldn't stand on ceremony. That monkey wine was really a rare treasure. As soon as the cup of monkey wine entered his mouth, the sweet aroma of the wine contained a strong fiery nature. It was as if a mouthful of lava had flowed down his throat and suddenly burst into flames, burning his limbs and bones. Lu Ping could even clearly feel the heat of the flames on his body. "Good wine, this is really good wine." This feeling of comfort made Lu Ping exclaim in delight. He couldn't help but drink another cup of monkey wine. At this time, Yuan Long, who was watching from the side, felt as if his heart was being cut by a knife when he saw Lu Ping drinking cup after cup. However, the great ape wise had always been forthright, especially when they met a good friend with a similar temperament. Therefore, although the great ape wise felt his heart ache for the monkey wine, he was also happy to see Lu Ping drinking to his heart's content. However, other than the great ape wise, no one else would be able to understand this contradictory mentality. Every time Lu Ping drank a cup of monkey wine, the time between each cup was very long. This was so that he would have enough time to refine the medicinal spiritual qi in the wine. Fortunately, the two of them weren't drinking for the sake of drinking. From time to time, they would discuss the Tao and interact with each other. During this period of time, apart from the previous battle, the two of them could be considered to have benefited greatly. They drank this jar of monkey wine for 2 whole days, but they still only drank 2/3 of it. In the end, when Lu Ping saw that Yuan Long's face had turned green, he was secretly amused. However, even if Lu Ping drank the rest of the monkey wine, it wouldn't be of any help to the strengthening of his body in the short term. Only then did he say, "Ah, what a pity, what a pity. This monkey wine can be said to be the best wine in the world. It's a pity that I can't drink anymore." Naturally, Yuan Long refused. Although his heart ached for the wine, he valued this good friend in front of him more. Naturally, he tried his best to dissuade Lu Ping from drinking all the wine. However, Lu Ping used the excuse that he couldn't drink anymore and refused to drink anymore. Helplessly, Yuan Long put the jar of monkey wine behind him. At this time, Lu Ping said, "Brother Yuan, I see that although your 1,000-pound staff is quite powerful, it seems to lack some variation. May I know why? Great intelligent apes liked to use staffs as their magic weapons. This was because of Ape Taoist's divine iron staff. However, the great intelligent ape clan staffs were known to have many variations, such as length and size. However, the 1,000-pound staff in Yuan Long's hand was definitely powerful enough, but it lacked many variations. This piqued Lu Ping's curiosity. When Yuan Long heard Lu Ping mention his life treasure, he couldn't help but sigh. He said, "Because I was young and frivolous, I wholeheartedly wanted to survive the Thunder Tribulation and become a life treasure. In the end, I still lacked some foundation. Although I successfully survived the Thunder Tribulation in the end, the life treasure source was slightly lacking. It was powerful enough, but it had to sacrifice various variations." Lu Ping said curiously, "The source of a life treasure can't be compared to a person's source. The lack of source doesn't mean that it's damaged. It can be made up by smelting rare treasures." Although Lu Ping wasn't very proficient in the Tao of smithing at his level, he still had a lot of experience. Yuan Long smiled wryly and said, "How can it be so easy to obtain rare treasures? This time, I, Old Yuan, have followed the cultivators of my clan to travel the Central Plains, and one of our objectives is to find a rare treasure that can supplement the essence of this staff. Otherwise, not only will this spirit treasure lack many transformations, it will also be extremely difficult for it to improve further in the future." Lu Ping nodded. He pondered for a moment and didn't say anything else. Just as Yuan Long was about to bid farewell, Lu Ping suddenly said happily, "I've got it. Brother Yuan, why don't you take a look and see if this thing can help your 1,000-pound staff?" Yuan Long was startled. When his gaze fell on the item in Lu Ping's hand, his eyes immediately emitted 2 rays of blue light. The light flashed and Yuan Long immediately shouted, "It's actually this thing. Qianji Quicksand Iron. Is this thing really Qianji Quicksand Iron?" Lu Ping was slightly startled when he saw the 2 rays of blue light in Yuan Long's eyes. This blue light was also the Tri-Pure True Pupils. However, the inheritance of the Tri-Pure True Pupils was divided into 3 branches, namely the Tai Ching True Pupils, Jade Pure True Pupils, and Prime Clear Pupils. Each of the 3 branches had their own merits and were evenly matched. Yuan Long's blue light was obviously cultivated in the Prime Clear Pupils branch, while Lu Ping's was cultivated in the Jade Pure Pupils branch. The only difference was that Lu Ping had already cultivated this branch to great success, while Yuan Long clearly hadn't found the 9 types of suitable heaven and earth water. Chapter 1184. The True Pupils of the 3 Pure Ones was originally a magical technique passed down by Ape Taoist. Even Jinling was able to obtain the inheritance of the True Pupils of the Jade Pure by chance. As the direct descendant of Ape Taoist, it was not surprising that the great ape clan possessed all the inheritance of the True Pupils of the 3 Pure Ones. However, when Yuan Long confirmed that the bowl in Lu Ping's hand that looked like fine sand but was actually flowing in the jade bowl at all times was really the 1,000 Opportunity Quicksand Iron, Yuan Long's heart suddenly felt like it was being scratched by the claws of a mouse. He could not calm down for even a moment and circled around the bowl of treasure in Lu Ping's hand. At this time, Yuan Long revealed the nature of the great ape clan. Lu Ping smiled and said, "It is indeed the 1,000 Opportunity Quicksand Iron. I also obtained this item by chance, but it is not very useful to me. Since Brother Yuan needs it, I will give it to you." This bowl of 1,000 Opportunity Quicksand Iron was a treasure Lu Ping obtained from Nanyu Laozu. Although it was a metal spiritual material, it flowed everywhere like water. It was a rare treasure in the cultivation world and was the favorite item of the great ape clan to forge their own natal spiritual treasure. Usually, the great ape clan's natal spiritual treasure only needed a little bit of 1,000 Opportunity Quicksand Iron to enhance their own treasures. If the bowl of 1,000 Opportunity Quicksand Iron that Lu Ping gave to Yuan Long was used sparingly in the past, it was enough to forge 3 to 5 spiritual treasure level treasures. Now, it was completely given to Yuan Long. Yuan Long was startled and hurriedly waved his hand and said, "No, this is a rare treasure in the world. It is something that can only be found by chance." I can't accept it. Lu Ping's face turned serious and said, Brother Yuan, you and I hit it off at first sight. There is no reason to refuse a gift from a friend. Moreover, you have already treated me to the world's unparalleled monkey wine. Giving you this bowl of 1,000 opportunity quicksand iron is a courtesy to reciprocate. If you refuse, does it mean that you do not recognize me as a friend? Yuan Long was stunned and said, That is not the case. This 1,000 opportunity quicksand iron is... Hey, be careful. Before Yuan Long could finish his words, he saw the 1,000 opportunity quicksand iron in Lu Ping's palm flying towards him. Yuan Long hurriedly and carefully caught the jade bowl, fearing that the quicksand iron inside would spill out. Lu Ping said, Brother Yuan, there is no need to say more. This 1,000 opportunity quicksand iron is yours. Otherwise, we can't even be friends. Yuan Long vigorously scratched his head and looked at the bowl of 1,000 opportunity quicksand iron in his hand. He wanted to refuse, but he really couldn't bear to part with it. So, as if he had made up his mind, he took out the jar of monkey wine from behind his head and said, Brother Lu, to tell you the truth, I really want this 1,000 opportunity quicksand iron, but I can't take this treasure of yours for free. Please don't look down on this jar of monkey wine. In the future, it will be good to leave it as a reward for the disciples of the clan. Lu Ping laughed and said, All right, I will accept this. This monkey wine is also a rare treasure in the world. It may not be inferior to the 1,000 opportunity quicksand iron. Yuan Long understood in his heart that although the monkey wine could be considered a rare treasure of the world, as long as the intelligent great ape clan existed, the monkey wine could be produced in an endless supply even though it was little. As for the 1,000 chance quicksand iron, it was something that could only be chanced upon and not sought. Why was the former general Yuan Pokong able to become the head of the 4 great generals of the great ape clan? It was all because of the Qianji quicksand iron that Yuan Pokong had snatched from Xiao Baiyu that year, which was forged into the spiritual treasure phantom cudgel. When Yuan Pokong fought with the other 3 generals of the spiritual great ape clan, he was actually able to fight against 3 of them and escape unscathed. Of course, it was said that Yuan Pokong also paid a great price for this. He was chased by Xiao Baiyu and beaten miserably. In the end, he fled back to the North Ice Field in a sorry state. From then on, the 2 could be said to have formed a grudge. Yuan Long pondered for a moment and then said to Lu Ping in a serious manner, Brother Lu, when I was drinking with you earlier, I seem to have heard that your treasured cauldron of heaven and earth replica is preparing to undergo the second thunder tribulation? Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat and he retracted his smile. That's right. Ling Long has been accumulating quite a bit of strength over the years. I think she has a high chance of surviving the second lightning tribulation. What's wrong, Brother Yuan? Did you notice anything wrong? The treasured cauldron of heaven and earth in Taoist ape's hands could regulate the world's spirit veins. It was one of the 6 great divine weapons of heaven and earth. As the direct descendants of Taoist ape, it was normal for the great ape clan to have some understanding of the treasured cauldron of heaven and earth. Sure enough, Yuan Long nodded and said, Brother Lu, your treasured cauldron of Ling Long has indeed accumulated a lot of resources. It shouldn't be too much of a problem for it to survive the second thunder tribulation. However, if Ling Long survives the thunder tribulation, the effect of her basic control over the formation of spirit veins will at most double that of the first thunder tribulation. The treasured cauldron of heaven and earth can regulate the world's spirit veins. Even if this replica is inferior to the original, it is still far inferior. Lu Ping thought that there was indeed something fishy about it. He hurriedly said, Brother Yuan, please teach me. Yuan Long shook his head and said, I'm not teaching you. I'm just reminding you. One of the important reasons why the treasured cauldron of heaven and earth can regulate and gather the world's spirit veins is that there seems to be a suppressive object in the treasured cauldron of heaven and earth. This artifact can maximize the effect of the treasured cauldron of heaven and earth in gathering the world's spirit veins. If the treasured cauldron of heaven and earth wants to completely condense the spirit veins into one and hide them in the earth's vein without collapsing, it needs this treasure in the treasured cauldron to finally suppress and condense it. Otherwise, with the current power of Linglong's wine cauldron, it can easily control and condense small or micro spirit veins. However, if it wants to condense a medium spirit vein, even if Linglong survives the second Thunder Tribulation, it may not be able to do it. Lu Ping was puzzled. Brother Yuan, Linglong once helped me control large spirit veins. If she survives the second Thunder Tribulation, she should be able to control a large spirit vein on her own, right? In fact, Linglong did not only control a large spirit vein. On Failing Mountain, Linglong even helped Lu Ping control 7 large spirit veins in one go to help him break through to the Dharma realm. Yuan Long smiled and was about to explain, but unexpectedly at this time, Linglong jumped out from behind Lu Ping and said, "He is right. Controlling and condensing spirit veins are not the same thing." Lu Ping naturally knew that Linglong really agreed with what Yuan Long said. However, he was still a little puzzled, so he could only look at Yuan Long with a questioning gaze. However, at this time, Linglong continued to say, "Right now, I can control large spirit veins and can condense small and micro spirit veins. These are all not bad, and after the Thunder Tribulation, I can even condense medium spirit veins. However, medium spirit veins will only condense when Linglong's real body is around. Once the real body leaves, the spirit veins will lose their suppression and will automatically collapse. However, the spirit veins that the treasured cauldron of heaven and earth condensed in the world will not collapse. They will condense as one with the earth veins. This is the biggest difference between a replica and a heaven-breaking artifact." Lu Ping finally understood a little and said, "In other words, after Linglong survives the second Thunder Tribulation, even if she can condense a medium spirit vein from the earth veins, this spirit vein will only exist under Linglong's suppression. Once Linglong's real body leaves, this spirit vein will automatically collapse and return to the earth veins?" Yuan Long nodded and said, "Exactly." In fact, in the world of cultivation, there are many spirit veins that the treasured cauldron of heaven and earth's imitation spirit treasures have gathered. These spirit veins are collectively known as the void spirit veins. Because the gathered spirit veins have never been able to condense and form, in order to be able to release the imitation spirit treasures from the void spirit veins, there are alchemists in the world of cultivation who have created a type of spirit-gathering Dharma treasure to suppress the void spirit veins and release the imitation spirit treasures of the treasured cauldron of heaven and earth. A spirit-gathering Dharma treasure. Lu Ping had seen such a Dharma treasure before. Years ago, on the Silver Sword Island in the East Sea of Skyrend, there had been a private trade fair. At that time, Lu Ping, who was still an early-stage core forging cultivator, had followed Liang Xianfeng and Laozu, who were in the late-stage core forging realm. This spirit-gathering Dharma treasure was a spirit-gathering Dharma treasure, but there were only 2 spirit-gathering Dharma treasures condensed on it. Although a spirit-gathering Dharma treasure was just a Dharma treasure, it was not easy to refine. It could be said that it was second only to a heavenly abode Dharma treasure of the same rank. However, such a Dharma treasure was only refined to imprison a medium spirit vein. Moreover, after the spirit vein was sealed and suppressed, a cultivator had to constantly look after it, otherwise, it could still cause the spirit vein to flow away. However, even such a spirit-gathering Dharma treasure caused Liang Xianfeng to secretly follow the person who bid for it. He wanted to kill the person and take the treasure for himself. From this, one could see the importance of a spirit-gathering Dharma treasure to a sect. Lu Ping finally understood the problem, so he asked, "Brother Yuan, do you know what treasure is used to suppress the spirit vein in the wine cauldron of heaven and earth?" Yuan Long shook his head helplessly. "I'm not too sure about this. However, according to ancient legends, the treasure used to suppress the spirit vein in the wine cauldron of heaven and earth should be a tower." "A tower?" Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat, but his expression was still one of surprise. Yuan Long nodded. "That's right, it's a pagoda. However, I don't know what this pagoda looks like or how it was refined. Perhaps the old geezers of the wise Great Ape clan might know a bit more, but I'm afraid that it involves the secrets of our Great Ape clan. I'm afraid that even if Brother Lu wants these secrets, those old geezers won't tell you." Lu Ping revealed a slightly regretful expression and said, "I naturally understand this principle. If it was me, then I would absolutely not tell anyone who wants to exchange for the secret of the wine cauldron, no matter how high the price is. Yuan Long nodded and said, "It's good that Brother Lu is aware of it. Perhaps the secret of Linglong's advancement might not be known only by our clan. Whether Brother Lu can obtain information about the tower in the future will depend on Brother Lu's luck." Not long after, Yuan Long bid farewell to Lu Ping and headed southwest. According to Yuan Long, he was originally going to the southwest. It was said that after the battle of the 9 pure Yang great ancestors at Qingming River, the Peacock royalty of the Endless Mountain and the Lingyun Valley weren't peaceful anymore. He was going there to find someone to fight, but he encountered the disturbance caused by Lu Ping on the Qingming River, so he postponed his trip to the southwest and specially came to fight with Lu Ping. Chapter 1185. Looking at Yuan Long's receding figure, Linglong, who was behind Lu Ping, couldn't help asking, "Brother, is the pagoda that the big monkey mentioned to help Linglong suppress and condense the spiritual vein Buying Tower?" Lu Ping spread his hands and said, "How do I know? I just learned today that there is a suppressing treasure in the treasure cauldron of heaven and earth. Buying Tower is just a guess. Even if it is true, how can Buying Tower help you suppress the spiritual vein? I don't know whether your body and Buying Tower are one or not." Linglong looked very frustrated and said, "Well, I'm afraid the thunder punishment will be delayed again." Lu Ping knocked her head and said with a smile, "Don't be discontented. This is a good thing. If you can really figure out the secret of the treasure cauldron of heaven and earth, you will get a great deal." Although Lu Ping comforted Linglong, he wasn't sure if 8 Scenic Pavilion had anything to do with Linglong. At the very least, the two didn't seem to have anything to do with each other. However, Lu Ping felt that it was too much of a coincidence that they both came from Ying Tian Dojo at the same time. After putting away Linglong, Lu Ping said goodbye to Black Tortoise and continued to go upstream along the Qingming River. At this time, he was in the central region, so it was impossible for him to go back to Beihai to see what the relationship between Buying Tower and Linglong's wine cauldron was. Regardless of whether or not he could find the connection between the two, even if he could, the Buying Tower was now one of the most important treasures of Zhenling sect. It was the most important training ground for Zhenling sect's disciples. At the same time, it was also the place where disciples who made mistakes would be punished. Thus, it could not be touched easily. As the longest river in the central region, the Qingming River happened to be the section from Jiushuan Tower to Magic Cloud City. After several years, Lu Ping was finally closer to the starting point of the middle section of the Qingming River. Although the Qingming River was long, it was not so long that it took Black Tortoise several years to finish it. It was because Lu Ping was hindered by various unexpected accidents on the way that he finally entered the territory of Jiushuan Tower. Since leaving the Magic Cloud City, Lu Ping had been through a series of battles and drifted on the Qingming River for a period of time. He had already gained a new understanding of the Great River East Sword technique. Now, he was practicing swordsmanship on the back of the Black Tortoise, trying to separate a brand new set of swordsmanship from the general principle of the Great River East Sword technique. However, Lu Ping's luck was clearly not very good. Just as he was concentrating on practicing his swordsmanship, a beam of light fell from the 9 heavens and grabbed at Lu Ping's head. Lu Ping's expression did not change. The dual flying swords in his hands suddenly made a Milky Way surging, which seemed to roll up the Milky Way. Even the water of the Qingming River under his feet flowed against the current for dozens of feet, colliding with the current surging upstream and splashing in all directions. The falling light was immediately submerged by the surging sword light. However, this sudden attack was obviously premeditated for a long time. Naturally, it would not only have this method. At the moment when the light was submerged, a crimson light had already slashed horizontally from dozens of feet in front of Lu Ping, aiming at Lu Ping's neck. Bang! A stream of sparks suddenly exploded in front of Lu Ping. Unknowingly, the invisible water sword had already appeared in front of Lu Ping, blocking the horizontal slash of the crimson light. When the crimson light dissipated, it was actually a wing blade covered in feathers. However, at the moment when Lu Ping blocked these two attacks, A golden claw suddenly broke through the space behind Lu Ping, directly grabbing at Lu Ping's back. This claw could be said to have come without a sound. Obviously, this was a premeditated attack by the sneak attacker. This was the real killer move. If it were an ordinary cultivator, they would probably not be able to withstand this series of sneak attacks. However, how could Lu Ping be so easily schemed against? Just as the claw broke through the space behind Lu Ping's tyrannical divine sense had already detected an extremely subtle spatial fluctuation. This was obviously an expert who was extremely proficient in the art of sneak attacks. Unknowingly, Lu Ping's body had suddenly turned around. The attack aimed at Lu Ping's back was now right in front of Lu Ping. Lu Ping's left arm moved forward, and the index finger of his left hand pointed out, colliding with the golden claw. There wasn't the slightest sound or movement, it was just a silent collision. Then, the giant golden claw abruptly retreated, and a drop of blood oozed out from where Lu Ping's index finger had touched it. Then, an angry cry came from the sky. When Lu Ping looked up, he saw the spiritual energy in the sky rapidly converging. The phantom of a majestic giant eagle appeared above Lu Ping's head. The giant eagle's head poked down, and its hook-like beak pecked at the top of his head. Lu Ping was furious. He shouted, "Are you done yet?" As he spoke, Lu Ping suddenly waved his right arm with his sleeve. The spiritual energy in the sky suddenly became chaotic. The spiritual energy giant eagle could no longer maintain its form and immediately collapsed in midair. Lu Tianping of the North Sea. The spiritual energy giant eagle was dispersed by Lu Ping with a wave of his sleeve. Suddenly, two figures appeared in the sky. One of them was obviously within Lu Ping's expectations, but the other person made Lu Ping slightly surprised. The other person was none other than the first princess of the Peacock royalty, Yang Huajun. The other person was a young man with a cold expression and a sharp face. He was slightly thin and had broad shoulders. This person was the one who shouted, "Lu Tianping of the North Sea," just now. He was also the lone eagle who failed to kill Lu Qiner in Magic Cloud City that day and suffered a loss under Lu Ping's hands. Lu Ping ignored the lone eagle youth's clamor. He slowly floated up and said to Yang Huajun, "So it's fellow Taoist Yang. I haven't seen you for many years. I didn't expect to meet you here." When the lone eagle youth saw that Lu Ping didn't pay attention to him at all, a fierce look flashed in his eyes. However, his face was still indifferent as if he didn't notice that Lu Ping ignored his existence. The golden peacock Yang Huajun also had a cold expression. When he heard Lu Ping's greeting, he twitched the corner of his mouth and said in a crisp voice, "I was passing by here and saw Lu Daoyu practicing swordsmanship. My hands were itchy and I wanted to spar with fellow Daoyu. I hope fellow Dao you won't blame me for offending you." Ing Ao was naturally the lone eagle youth next to Yang Huajun. However, his previous attacks were all aimed at Lu Ping's vital points. Moreover, his moves were sinister and vicious. Lu Ping really couldn't see that this lone eagle clan cultivator wanted to spar with him. It was clear that he wanted to kill him. Lu Ping nodded with a smile and said, "Since I'm passing by, I won't bother fellow Taoist any longer. If you have time in the future, fellow Taoist Yang can come to the North Sea as a guest. This Lu will definitely welcome you." From beginning to end, Lu Ping didn't even look at Ing Ao. Yang Huajun naturally noticed the subtle difference between the two and quickly said, "I've caused trouble for fellow Taoist. See you later." Lu Ping also smiled and said, "See you later." The escape light under Yang Huajun's feet flickered. Obviously, he was about to leave. Unexpectedly, the escape light dimmed. Yang Huajun couldn't help but frown and look back. Obviously, Ing Ao had stopped Yang Huajun from leaving. Lu Ping was still watching with a smile on his face. Yang Huajun said in a deep voice, "Brother Ao." Ing Ao ignored Yang Huajun's words of dissuasion. Instead, he stared at Lu Ping and said, "On the day of the Battle of Qingming River, Lu Daoyu was also watching from the side, right?" This was not a secret. That day, Lu Ping, Lu Tianyuan, and Tian Tian did not hide their tracks on the lonely hill on the south bank of Qingming River. Not to mention that they had fought with the direct descendants of Nine Profound Tower, Skyward Pavilion, and Purple Sun Palace before. Many people knew that Lu Ping was nearby. Lu Ping inadvertently glanced at Ing Ao and said, "Whether I was near Qingming River that day, shouldn't fellow Taoist Ing know better?" For some reason, Yang Huajun naturally looked at Ing Ao with a face full of doubt. However, he saw a flash of anger on Ing Ao's face. He was an outstanding cultivator among the young generation of Lone Eagle. Even among the third generation of cultivators in the entire cultivation world, there were few who could rival him. He had always thought highly of himself, but he didn't expect that he would accidentally suffer a loss from boss Lu Ping outside Qingming River that day. This matter had always been bothering him. Previously, when they were flying over Qingming River, Ing Ao suddenly discovered that Lu Ping was practicing swordsmanship in Qingming River, so he immediately used sparring as an excuse to sneak an attack on Lu Ping, but the method he used was to kill. He naturally knew the news of Lu Ping defeating Ma Si the Great, but this Ing Ao was already brooding over his defeat at the hands of Lu Ping, and the news of Lu Ping defeating a late Dharma adept made him even angrier. The Lone Eagle's temperament was originally extreme and stubborn, and this Ing Ao thought highly of himself. This time, when he was traveling with Yang Huajun insisted on traveling along Qingming River, and at the same time, he realized why Yang Huajun wanted to travel along Qingming River. Naturally, he wanted to kill Lu Ping. However, the attack was easily blocked by Lu Ping, and after Ing Ao suffered a loss again, he saw Lu Ping and Yang Huajun talking as if he was nothing, which made Ing Ao burn with jealousy, and he immediately had other thoughts. Lu Ping's mockery made Ing Ao hate him even more, and he said in a cold voice, "So you're also one of the suspects?" This sentence was directed at Yang Huajun, but Lu Ping was confused, but he understood in his heart that this Ing Ao obviously wanted to smear his name. Yang Huajun immediately frowned and said unhappily, "Brother Ing, please be careful with your words. Uncle Jichang died because he was surrounded, and it has nothing to do with Lu Daoyu." Ing Ao laughed coldly. That day, he also had two brothers with him. Don't forget that this person could even defeat a late Dharma adept. It's not impossible for him to join forces with his two brothers to kill Senior Jichang and take his natal feather. Enough. Yang Huajun interrupted Ing Ao's words coldly and said, "Brother Ing, you've lost your composure. Some things can't be said casually." Ing Ao didn't expect Yang Huajun to be so protective of the human adept in front of him, and his expression instantly became even more gloomy. Yang Huajun apologized to Lu Ping. "Huajun is really ashamed about what happened today. If I've offended you, Lu Daoyu, please don't blame me. In the future, Huajun will definitely apologize to you personally. I'll take my leave now." With that, the conveyance light under Yang Huajun's feet flashed again. This time, Ing Ao didn't stop him, and the two disappeared in midair together. Chapter 1186. Looking at the direction in which the two left, Lu Ping stroked his chin. His eyes flickered as if he was thinking about something. After a while, Lu Ping stretched out his hand and waved it towards the Qingming River. He gradually turned into a stream of water, then turned into a cloud in midair and merged with the clouds in midair. The white cloud floated away leisurely in the direction in which Yang Huajun and Ing Ao left. The endless mountain peacock race was a huge race. They could all be considered the direct bloodline of Pengdaoren. However, in the peacock race, there was also the peacock royalty, and the most obvious sign of the peacock royalty was the ability to condense a life plume feather. The importance of this life plume feather to the peacock royalty was no less than a life treasure. It was the medium through which many direct divine abilities of the peacock royalty could be used, and it was also the symbol of the peacock royalty's status. However, this life plume feather was of little value to the cultivators of the human and demon races. This was because this life plume feather seemed to have no other use other than as a decoration in their hands. Unless it was used to make the 5 elements spiritual light fan. However, other than the peacock royalty, who else had the inheritance of such a supreme divine ability? Other than the peacock royalty, who else had the refining method of the 5 elements spiritual light fan? Originally, the peacock royalty could have said confidently, "No." However, The two incidents where Yang Shujun's life plume feather of the five elements turtle and Yang Jichang's life plume feather after being killed outside the Qingming River made it difficult for the peacock royalty to figure out. Could it be that the refining method of the five elements spiritual light fan was really passed down in the cultivation world? But even so, without the direct bloodline of the peacock royalty and the secret technique of the peacock royalty to activate the five elements spiritual light fan, even if they obtained it, how much power could they exert? Although the practitioners of the peacock royalty were puzzled, they had lost two of their life plume feathers and a mid-dharma adept of the royal family. No matter what, the peacock royalty could not tolerate this. However, at this time, the peacock royalty had a tense relationship with the major and minor sects of the central mainland training world, led by the Lingyun Valley, because of the incident in Magic Cloud City. They could not spare more people to investigate the matter. Helpless, the peacock royalty had no choice but to inform some of the peacock royalty members who were traveling about. Firstly, it was to raise their vigilance, and secondly, it was in the hope that they could conduct some investigations. And Yang Huajun was undoubtedly a member of the peacock royalty who was traveling, and he was accompanied by the young talent of the lone eagle, Ing Ao. After his famous uncle, Yang Jishang, was killed and his life plume feather was taken, he and Ing Ao immediately began to investigate the matter. A golden-red escape light flashed in the sky and landed on a hill not far away. The escape light disappeared, and Yang Huajun, who had a frosty expression, and Ing Ao, who was silent, walked out one after another. "Brother Ao, why are you like this today?" Yang Huajun asked coldly. She understood what the elders of the royal family meant this time. After Ing Li died in the five elements tortoise, the marriage between the lone eagle and the peacock royalty was suddenly interrupted. However, there did not seem to be any estrangement between the two clans because of this. Although the five peacock princesses were safe and sound, in order to rescue the five princesses from the five elements tortoise, the peacock royalty had lost two late Dharma adepts. This was a serious loss. The two clans worked hard to unite. After the marriage between Ing Li and Yang Rujuan failed, the two clans pushed out Yang Huajun and Ing Ao. Both of them were the best of the younger generation of the two clans. Yang Huajun was the eldest princess of the peacock royalty, and Ing Ao was the top expert of the younger generation of the lone eagle. In the eyes of the two clans, these two were a perfect match, and the significance of this was even greater than the marriage between Yang Rujuan and Ing Li. After the death of Ing Li, not only did the peacock royalty and the lone eagle no longer have any animosity, but they also cooperated more closely. This time, Yang Huajun and Ing Ao went out to travel together. In fact, it was an act of matchmaking by the elders of the two clans. Not only did Yang Huajun know about this, but Ing Ao also knew about it. During the period of time they had spent together, the relationship between the two of them could be considered pleasant. However, both of them understood that there was a barrier between them. Both of them were prideful and cold people of few words. Even though Ing Ao took the initiative, it was obvious that Ing Ao wasn't used to it. It was just that the two of them had no choice but to brace themselves and adapt to each other due to their respective tribes and races. However, this time, after seeing Lu Ping, Ing Ao no longer had his usual calmness. On the contrary, his performance could even be said to be clumsy, which made Yang Huajun very dissatisfied. He even did not hesitate to question Ing Ao. Unexpectedly, Ing Ao's mind was subtle. Seeing that Yang Huajun stood on the side of Lu Ping, he was even more annoyed in his heart. However, after all, he was a sensitive person. Previously, he had lost his sense of propriety in front of Lu Ping and immediately became vigilant. Although Yang Huajun's questioning tone made him angry, he would not show this on his face. So, with a slightly ashamed expression, he said, "I shouldn't have done it. It's just that this person launched a sneak attack for no reason outside Magic Cloud City. You know that this person is very strong, but I suffered a big loss. When I saw him just now, I inevitably had the thought of revenge. I couldn't calm down for a while, so I seem to have lost my composure." "Oh." Yang Huajun frowned slightly and said, "Brother Ao once fought with Brother Lu outside Magic Cloud City?" When Ing Ao heard Yang Huajun call Lu Ping brother, He felt even more uncomfortable in his heart, but he still said, yes. At that time, this Lu Daoyu seemed to be coming out of Magic Cloud City. Speaking of this, Ing Ao suddenly seemed to realize something. He exclaimed in surprise and said, could it be that this person discovered something and tried to stop me? Yang Huajun thought for a moment and shook his head. It shouldn't be. When he came out of Magic Cloud City, he should have just returned from the South Sea. He shouldn't have anything to do with Magic Cloud City. As for attacking Brother Ao, it's a bit strange. Could it be because of Ing Li? Ing Ao was shocked when he heard this. He asked in a deep voice, why? Could it be that Brother Li's death is also related to this person? Yang Huajun was slightly startled. He hurriedly shook his head and said, that's not it. But the two of them did have some conflict before, and Brother Li was defeated by Brother Lu. Ing Ao's eyes were indeed glowing fiercely. He said, in that case, Brother Li's death might be related to this person. Yang Huajun still wanted to say something, but was interrupted by Ing Ao. He said, I know what you mean, but when Brother Li died, he wasn't there. It doesn't mean that Brother Li's death has nothing to do with him. No matter what, I will investigate this matter. If it's really related to this person. Although Ing Ao didn't say what he would do, it wasn't difficult for Yang Huajun to guess. It was just that she didn't expect things to develop to this point with Ing Ao. Originally, she also wanted to tell Ing Ao one thing. That was, in the woods outside Magic Cloud City, Lu Ping and his followers had slaughtered a group of Mara's team driven away by the peacock race. At that time, Yang Zhongchang, who was responsible for driving away Mara, had reported this matter to the clan. Yang Huajun also knew about this matter in detail. Yang Huajun originally thought that at that time, Lu Ping had actually discovered Yang Zhongchang and the others and realized the peacock race's plot against Magic Cloud City, so he took action to deal with Ing Ao. After all, humans and demons were different. Although Lu Ping had nothing to do with Magic Cloud City, he didn't want the forces of the demon race to break through the blockade of the endless mountains and reach into the cultivation world of the central land occupied by the human race. However, seeing Ing Ao's current appearance, Yang Huajun unconsciously swallowed the words that were about to come out of her mouth. However, what Yang Huajun didn't know was that although this was Ing Ao's speculation, he had actually guessed the whole story. Ing Li was really killed by Lu Ping. Yang Huajun looked up at the sky and felt that there was something wrong around this hill, so he said, Brother Ao, no matter what, this Lu Tianping has saved our lives. I still hope that Brother Ao doesn't have enough evidence to make an enemy of this person. Moreover, this person's magical power is tyrannical, and it's not easy to deal with him. When Ing Ao heard the first half of Yang Huajun's words, he was slightly dissatisfied. However, when he said the second half, he felt that Yang Huajun was concerned about him. He couldn't help but feel happy and said, Sister Hua, don't worry. If I, Lone Eagle, want to kill someone, he won't be able to stop me just because his cultivation is high, right? Hearing this, Yang Huajun's face darkened. He said, that's right. However, Brother Ao, if I remember correctly, the illustrious reputation of the aristocracy is mostly obtained from the bloodline of my Pengdaoren, right? Ing Ao secretly scolded himself for being muddle-headed all his life. Now that the Lone Eagle and the Peacock royalty had formed an alliance, they naturally let go of their past enmity. They didn't even have time to mention the past, yet he still brought it out to show off. He had to explain and beg for mercy again. However, he saw that Yang Huajun's expression suddenly changed. Ing Ao originally thought that she was still angry about his slip of the tongue just now. Just when he was about to say something, he heard Yang Huajun say first, Brother Ao, don't you feel that the vicinity of this hill is a little too quiet? Hearing this, Ing Ao was startled. The surroundings of this hill were completely covered by the forest, and in the distance were the flat farmlands on the banks of Qingming River. At this time, the forest should be bustling with the crisp chirping of birds, but now it was completely silent, not even a trace of wind. Ing Ao was originally an expert in sneak attacks and ambushes. It was just that his state of mind was disturbed because of the matter with Lu Ping previously. Now that Yang Huajun had already reminded him, his heart suddenly quivered. Wasn't this scene in front of him a sign of being ambushed? Ing Ao opened his palm, and a pair of small wing-like magic treasures with red edges and black feathers floated above his palm. Obviously, Ing Ao had already sensed the killing intent hidden in the surrounding forest. However, with a glance, Yang Huajun saw a red scar on Ing Ao's palm that had just stopped bleeding. It was left by Lu Ping when he sneak attacked Lu Ping from behind. He couldn't help but ask, "How's the injury?" Ing Ao smiled slightly and said, "It's fine." In fact, after being hit by Lu Ping's finger, Ing Ao had been trying his best to suppress the rampaging sword chi in his palm. It was only just now that he was able to expel the sword chi in his palm completely. While he was secretly amazed at the tyrannical strength of Lu Ping's cultivation, he couldn't help but secretly exclaim that it was a close call. If he was a little later, this hand would inevitably be affected in the battle, and he wouldn't be able to use 70 to 80% of his strength. That would be dangerous. Chapter 1187. Bang, bang, bang. Several tens of devil luos suddenly flashed out from the forest using various escape techniques, charging toward Yang Huajun and Ing Ao who were on the top of the hill from all directions. How could there be Mara here? A gust of wind blew, and more than 10 wind azuras appeared from the gust. They blocked the two's escape route in one fell swoop, and at the same time, they charged toward them. The clouds in the sky were stirred up by these wind azuras. Yang Huajun and Ing Ao had no time to think and hurriedly blocked Mara's attack. Ing Ao's natal item was a pair of First Tribulation Spirit Treasure winged blades, which looked like they were refined from the feathers of his body. The winged blades spun in his hand and instantly grew to a length of 5 feet. 2 blade lights flew out, and 2 wind azuras that swooped down from the sky were instantly cut in half. Yang Huajun, on the other hand, was only wielding a spirit-nurturing Dharma treasure. It was a silver longbow. She inserted a golden feather into the bowstring of the longbow, and a long sword suddenly appeared in her hand. She pulled the longbow fully and loosened it, and the arrow suddenly disappeared. Among the demonic luos in the distance, the 2 that were running at the front suddenly knelt on the ground, and a finger-sized hole had appeared in their chests. The 2 of them attacked viciously. In just a single move, they had each killed 4 demon luos. Immediately, the demon luos that were pouncing toward them stopped in their tracks. They only surrounded the 2 of them on the hill in the center from afar. "This group of Mara is strange," Yang Huajun said in a deep voice. Ing Ao's expression was also very ugly. He glanced around and said, "There are about 100 of them, and most of them are big Mara. If we force our way out, we can still break through, but there must be a blood Mara hiding behind this group of Mara. I'm afraid that he will suddenly attack us when we break through. That would be terrible." Although this group of Mara did not have a blood Mara, most of them were big Mara that was equivalent to the middle or late Dharma stage. If they swarmed the 2 of them together, even if they were both in the middle Dharma stage, they had to be careful. The key was that there might be a hidden blood Mara. If he suddenly attacked, the 2 of them would be caught off guard and would suffer a great loss. Another breeze blew over the hill. Yang Huajun and Ing Ao nervously watched the Mara army that was getting closer and closer to them. It was not that the 2 of them did not know how to break through, but that behind this group of Mara army, not only had the figure of a blood Mara appeared, but even the aura of a jade Mara was becoming more and more obvious. Even if the 2 of them were dark and cold people, their expressions were unusually ugly at this moment. Using so many Mara just to surround the 2 of them, it seemed like a trap no matter how they looked at it. It was not that Mara did not have the wisdom to set up traps, but the 2 of them did not expect that they would actually encounter such a special honor. It was just that the 2 of them did not notice that when the breeze blew over, a white cloud slowly floated over from the sky, and the clouds that were previously disturbed by the appearance of the wind azura also gradually gathered above the top of the hill. When Lu Ping arrived, Mara had already launched an attack on Yang Huajun and Ing Ao. More than 100 Mara attacked the 2 of them like cannon fodder. A few blood Mara wandered outside the battle, cutting off the 2 of them's escape route. At the same time, The blood demon also used all kinds of strange soul-devouring magic to disturb the two of them. Near the battle, Lu Ping even sensed the aura of two Jade Mara. What a huge formation! It looked like a trap specially set up, but it was unknown whether it was specially set up for the two of them, or whether it was set up for the prey to fall into the net. However, this area seemed very desolate, not a good place to set up a trap. It seemed that even though the high-level Mara had some wisdom, it was still limited. How many people would pass by if they set up a trap here? It could not be that Mara had specially set up a trap to wait for them here, right? Yang Huajun and Ying Ao were really lucky. Just as the two of them killed 3 great Azuras that pounced on them, a blood demon that had been wandering outside suddenly shouted at the two of them on the top of the hill. An imperceptible ripple instantly reached the two of them, and the bodies of Yang Huajun and Ying Ao inevitably paused, obviously affected by the blood demon's attack. The 2 blood Azuras immediately took the opportunity to charge into the battle. Lu Ping saw it clearly from the sky, and thought to himself that the 2 blood Azuras were most likely going to suffer a great loss. Sure enough, 2 screams were heard, and the 2 blood Azuras were quickly pushed out from the battle. However, one of them had its arm and half of its shoulder chopped off, while the other's neck was torn in half by a bowstring that was suddenly thrown out, and it was almost decapitated. However, just as Yang Huajun and Ying Ao were planning to seriously injure the 2 blood Azuras, a huge tree not far away from them suddenly exploded. Countless branches, leaves, and roots were obviously enhanced by a secret technique, and for a moment, they shot towards the two of them with a power that was not weaker than magic treasures. Things happened in a hurry, and the two of them hurriedly used their own means to block the attack, and at the same time, flew back. However, just as the two of them flew up, they suddenly found themselves suddenly being oppressed and pulled by a huge force, and they were fiercely smashed to the ground. The two of them barely managed to control their bodies, but the force of using all their strength to retreat was still there, and they still involuntarily took 2 steps back. Following that, the two of them let out a cry of pain. When they looked down, they did not know when a few stone spikes had emerged from the ground, piercing through their 4 feet and nailing them to the ground. Earth Azura! Lu Ping was stunned. This was a branch of the Azura clan that he had never seen overseas. The Azura clan was roughly divided into 7 main branches: metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, and ice. The only Azura branch that Lu Ping had not seen overseas was the Earth Azura branch, and the Earth Azura he saw today was a Jade Azura. Moreover, this Earth Azura was obviously extraordinary. The magic power that controlled the surrounding fields and the strange stone spikes had seriously injured both Yang Huajun and Ying Ao. Of course, this was also because the wood Azura hiding in the huge tree had suddenly attacked, which caused the two of them to be unable to divert their attention to deal with it. Both of their feet had been pierced. Although the two of them had sealed their wounds, whether it was flying or dodging, it still affected the two of them greatly. The Demon Luo's team took advantage of the situation to attack the two of them. Even the 2 Jade Shura didn't hide anymore, as they thought the two of them couldn't escape. They started to attack the two of them with the help of the remaining 3 blood Demon Luos. The Demon Luos who were supposed to be fighting the small Demon Luos were now the ones who were waving flags and cheering. At this moment, Ying Ao appeared to be a little more unyielding. He tried his best to execute the supreme divine ability of the Lone Eagle clan, combining the 2 winged sabers with a spatial divine ability to move about randomly around the two of them. It was as though a world of saber light had been formed. In this world, other than Ying Ao and Yang Huajun, there was no place for the other evil Luos. 4 or 5 big Mara were swept into the blade light formation and smashed to pieces. One of the blood Azuras was a step too slow, and at the same time his companion's spiritual treasure was smashed, and the other blood Azura had 2 fingers cut off. Even though the 2 Jade Azuras had retreated from the blade light formation, they looked very embarrassed. In mid-air, Lu Ping, who had turned into a cloud, looked unusually solemn. This blade light formation was very powerful, and the Ying Li that he had met in the 5 elements hidden tortoise formation could not be compared to this Ying Ao. Just at the moment when the blade light formation was set up, Ying Ao hurriedly said, "I will stop them." Sister Hua, quickly open the space passage. Lu Ping looked over and saw that while Ying Ao was using the blade light formation to block the attacks of the two Jade Azuras, Yang Huajun took out a purple gold talisman that was half a foot long from his storage space. The space teleportation talisman was a talisman that was more advanced than the escape talismans that Lu Ping had seen before. It was obviously made by a master who made talismans, and it could still open a stable space passage even if the nearby space was disturbed to a certain extent. After the space teleportation talisman was activated, the purple gold talisman began to burn. As the talisman dissipated, the space behind them also shattered, and finally formed a pitch-black space door. The two of them were overjoyed. Ignoring the injuries on their feet, they rushed into the space door one after another. The space door seemed a little unstable, and after a few shakes, it began to quickly close up. But would they be able to escape now? Lu Ping, who had turned into a cloud, had already floated behind the small hill. There was still a jade demon hidden here. Just as the last, almost undetectable crack in the space door was about to close up, the jade demon suddenly attacked. The companion's spiritual treasure in its hand was like a jade chime, and after a crisp sound, the space crack that was about to close up suddenly collapsed. Tens of feet away, Yang Huajun and Ying Ao fell from midair with disheveled hair and ragged clothes. Then, both of their faces turned pale at the same time, and they spat out a mouthful of blood. The use of space magic was the most dangerous when someone interfered with it. Not to mention the fact that the two of them were only mid-Dharma adepts. Even great adepts and pure Yang Laozu would be in grave danger if someone interfered with them during the space teleportation. The two of them should be thankful that they survived with only some internal injuries. However, at this moment, the two of them were not in the mood to be thankful. If they were interfered with when opening the space door, they would die. Now that they were heavily injured and surrounded by a jade demon, they would die as well. At this moment, Yang Huajun and Ying Ao seemed to be in despair. It was just that the trap that Mara had laid today was really well planned, and the jade demon seemed to have predicted that they would have a way to escape. As for Lu Ping, who was in the clouds, he was still hesitating about whether he should help them. However, at this moment, Lu Ping suddenly froze, and a look of surprise appeared on his face. He looked into the distance, far behind the hill, and there were three flowing lights that Lu Ping felt were exceptionally familiar flying in their direction. This was too much of a coincidence. Chapter 1188. I didn't expect it to be the three of them. Lu Ping watched as the three streaks of light flew towards the hill. When they were about 5 kilometers away, they had clearly sensed the situation at the top of the hill. The three streaks of light stopped there for a moment, then flew towards the hill again. More than 5 kilometers away, Qing Hu was the first to notice the situation at the top of the hill. Qing Lang and Qing Hu both stopped as well. Big sister, it seems like someone is being surrounded by Mara. Qing Hu slowly retracted the divine sense that he had stretched out with great effort. Clearly, being able to perceive the situation over 5 kilometers away was a little too much for him. However, a hint of doubt flashed across his face. Clearly, it was rather strange for a group of devil luos to besiege a group of cultivators in this wilderness. Qing Lang's cultivation was slightly lower than Qing Hu's, but Qing Lang was clearly more intelligent than Qing Hu. He said in a low voice, "Big sister, we can't stay here for long. Moreover, the three of us are not out of danger yet. The people from the 9 mystical tower could catch up to us at any time." Qing Hu also said, "Then let's ignore them. We should hurry and find that Lu Tianping. I heard that he's traveling along the Azure Netherworld River, but he's walking like a snail. If we knew that he's still dawdling downstream, we wouldn't have to take the risk of waiting for him in the 9 mystical towers territory, only to be discovered by that crazy woman, Zhu Jiluan." Qing Lang glared at him, then said to Qing Hu, "Big sister, that Lu Tianping is really powerful now. Even a great cultivator was defeated in battle. We have to find him as soon as possible. Only then will we not have to fear the pursuers behind us, and only then will we have a chance to rescue little 4, little 7, and little 8. Qing Hu pondered for a moment, then said, "The two trapped are 2 Yao cultivators, one is a peacock, the other is a lone eagle." Qing Lang was startled. Lone eagle? After saying that, he fell silent. Qing Hu said loudly, "Then what are we waiting for? Little Five has the bloodline of the Lone Eagle clan, and he even received guidance from a senior of the Lone Eagle clan. He swore a long time ago that he would repay this favor to the Lone Eagle clan. Now that a cultivator of the Lone Eagle clan is in trouble, and Little Five is no longer here, we should rescue him. This can be considered as returning this favor on behalf of Little Five." Qing Hu nodded and said, "Second brother is right. Moreover, the All-Devil clan is a great enemy of the cultivation world. Since we've encountered them, we should naturally do our best. It can be considered as killing two birds with one stone." Qing Lang hurriedly said, "We'll just save those two. Looks like the Mara clan that's besieging them isn't weak, so don't drag us here with you. After all, that crazy bitch from the 9 Profound Pavilion is still chasing after us, and we'll be in trouble if she catches up to us." Qing Hu noticed that Qing Lang was staring at him as he spoke, and he immediately became angry. "Why do you keep staring at me? I won't cause any trouble." Qing Lang snorted coldly, "I hope so." Qing Hu immediately said angrily, "What do you mean by that?" Qing Lang said in a low voice, "If you hadn't killed so many people that the 9 Profound Pavilion seized the opportunity to surround you, how could Seventh Sister and the others have been captured by that crazy bitch, Zhu Jilwan? How could Fourth Brother and the others have died?" Qing Hu's furious expression suddenly froze, and he was just about to say something when he heard Qing Hu suddenly shout, "Enough! All of you, shut up." Qing Hu and Qing Lang both snorted coldly and did not say another word. Qing Hu then said, "Open up a path from the outside and save those two, then we'll leave." 3 streaks of light once again rose into the air and flew towards the hill. Very quickly, Yang Huajun and Ying Ao noticed Qing Hu and the other two. At this time, there were people flying over to help the two of them. Yang Huajun said loudly, "Thank you for your help, fellow Taoists. Please leave your names, and Yang Huajun will repay you generously in the future." Qing Hu and the other two were now Dharma adepts, especially Qing Hu herself, who had already passed the second lightning tribulation. Her abilities were only slightly weaker than those of the top heirs from the Holy Lands. Qing Hu and Qing Lang could also be considered experts in the early Dharma stage. The 3 of them attacked, and the first thing they did was to keep the Jade Demon occupied. Cyan Fox swung her giant axe at the Jade Demon's head with a force that could split mountains. She caught the Jade Demon off guard, and for a time, the Jade Demon was forced to retreat. However, Qing Hu knew her own abilities. Among the adepts of the same level, although Qing Hu was considered an expert, she was not strong enough to fight a Jade Mara head-on. She was only relying on the indomitable aura of her axe technique and the fact that she had caught the Jade Demon off guard. Once the Jade Demon survived this wave of attacks from Qing Hu, it would be Qing Hu's turn to suffer. Just as Qing Hu was temporarily holding off a Jade Demon, Qing Hu and Qing Lang also made their moves. They broke through the Mara's encirclement and launched a sneak attack on 2 injured Blood Shura, severely injuring them once again. After that, the 2 of them did not wait for the 2 dying Blood Shuras to finish them off. They suddenly turned around and joined forces to attack a Blood Shura that had been cooperating with the Jade Demon to attack Yang Huajun and Ying Ao. Just as Qing Hu and the other 2 suddenly joined the battle, Yang Huajun and Ying Ao suddenly erupted with power. Although the 2 of them were already heavily injured, it did not mean that they did not have any trump cards up their sleeves that they could use to fight to the death. This was the last chance for the 2 of them to escape with their lives. Naturally, both of them would use their trump cards to fight for their lives. Yang Huajun flipped the longbow in her hand, and the broken bowstring was reattached. She pulled the longbow to its fullest, but there was no arrow on the bowstring. The life feather on the bowstring was glowing with a golden light. As the life feather dimmed, there was an arrow on the bowstring that was glowing with a golden light. It was pointed at the Jade Shura that was not far away from her. At the same time, the wings in Ying Ao's hands suddenly disintegrated, turning into 108 black and red feathers. Each feather was a sharp feather blade. It was 108 spiritual treasures, and they formed the sword light matrix again. But this time, The power of the sword light matrix was several times greater than before. Facing the sword light matrix, the other Jade Shura that Ing Ao was fighting quickly retreated. The two Jade Shuras were forced to retreat, not daring to go forward to fight. The two of them quickly rushed toward Qing Hu and Qing Lang. After meeting up with the two of them, the four of them worked together to support Qing Hu, who was now being beaten by the Jade Demon. The two Jade Shuras that had been shaken off had recovered, and they were chasing after the four of them. They obviously did not want to let go of the fat meat in their hands. Right at that moment, a loud roar came from the forest outside of the book. Before the roar had even stopped, a flash of lightning had already landed on the ground. A figure then appeared from within the lightning. If it was not Yuan Jinglei from the Yuan family, who else could it be? Yuan Jinglei's arrival near the hill was not only unexpected by Yang Huajun, Qing Hu, and the others, but also by Lu Ping, who was hiding in midair. Looking at the direction of the long cry, it was only a few miles away from the forest. But even with Lu Ping's mind, he did not notice that someone was hiding there. The Yuan family was the top family in the world, and their inheritance could be traced back to the time when the sky was first opened. They had many amazing skills. Just as Lu Ping was marveling at the power of the Yuan family, Yuan Jinglei shouted, "Don't panic, everyone. Yuan Jinglei is coming." As soon as he said this, several bolts of lightning as thick as water buckets exploded in front of Qing Lang, Yang Huajun, and the others, frightening the Mara army that was closing in on them. One bolt of lightning fell on the Jade Demon, who was fighting back against Qing Hu, to relieve some of the pressure on the Green Fox. Yuan Jinglei's participation changed the situation on the battlefield. Yuan Jinglei was an expert no weaker than the direct descendants of the Holy Lands, and his strength was on par with Yang Huajun and Ing Ao. Not to mention that he specialized in lightning magic that could restrain Mara. The three great Jade Mara were intimidated. The two blood Azuras that had been heavily injured by Yang Huajun, Qing Lang, and the others were immediately reduced to ashes by the bolts of lightning. Yuan Jinglei roared with laughter and said, "Everyone, why don't we join forces and kill this group of evil Luos so that they don't cause trouble everywhere?" Unexpectedly, as soon as Yuan Jinglei finished speaking, Qing Hu was the first to speak. "Fellow Taoist of the Yuan family, the three of us only want to save these two to repay a favor to a senior of the Lone Eagle clan. Unfortunately, the three of us have other matters to attend to, so we can't stay here any longer. We're really sorry." Yang Huajun also spoke at this time. "I've written to fellow Taoist Yuan for your help, but Brother Ao and I are also seriously injured, and we're also exhausted from breaking out of the encirclement. I'm afraid we won't be of much help. We're really sorry." Yuan Jinglei was clearly a little embarrassed to hear all of this, so he hurriedly smiled and said, "Oh, it's my fault for not thinking things through. How about this, everyone retreat first, I'll cover your retreat." With that, the sound of wind and thunder rang out, and several bolts of lightning fell, intertwining in midair, even forming a lightning net between the group and the pursuing Mara. Then Yuan Jinglei said, "Everyone, retreat quickly, I can't hold out here for long." Yang Huajun said, "Fellow Taoist Yuan is a righteous person. Peacock Yang Huajun and Lone Eagle Ing Ao will repay this favor in the future. Also, I don't know how to address the three other Taoists, but the Peacock royalty will definitely repay the kindness of saving us today." After getting rid of the Jade Demon, Qing Hu had already reunited with Qing Hu and Qing Lang. Hearing Yang Huajun's words, Qing Hu waved her hand and said, "There's no need for that. Today, we only help to repay the Lone Eagle's kindness. If fate allows it, we can continue to be polite in the future." With that, Qing Hu, and Qing Hu soared into the sky. Qing Hu said loudly, "Thank you, fellow Taoist Yuan, for covering our retreat. We're out of danger now. Fellow Taoist should retreat quickly." Yuan Jinglei laughed loudly and said, "That's how it should be." With that, the Thunder King suddenly exploded, and countless bolts of lightning wreaked havoc, turning the area within a radius of several dozen zhang into a lightning domain. Mara's pained howls could be heard coming from within, and Yuan Jinglei had already taken the opportunity to escape several li away from the hill. Several more flashes of light appeared in the sky, and it was obvious that more people were flying in their direction. Qing Lang's expression didn't change, but his voice was unusually anxious as he said in a low voice, "Big sister, the 9 profound towers people are chasing us. We need to leave quickly." Chapter 1189. Not only did Qing Hu and the other two see the flickering light in the sky, even Yuan Jinglei, Yang Huajun, and Ying Ao had noticed it. Yuan Jinglei was overjoyed. "It looks like a fellow Taoist from the 9 profound tower. If we can ask for the help of fellow Taoists from the 9 profound tower to annihilate this group, there's a high chance that Mara will succeed. What do you all think?" Yang Huajun and Ying Ao, who were about to leave, were immediately tempted. It would be a lie to say that the two of them weren't furious after being besieged by Mara's inexplicable trap. However, when Yuan Jinglei invited the two of them, they were already an arrow at the end of its flight and were unable to mount a counterattack. But now, if the 9 profound tower really joined in, it wouldn't be difficult for them to annihilate this group of Maras. Just as Yang Huajun and Ying Ao were feeling tempted, they suddenly heard Qing Hu and her siblings say, "Since that's the case, we'll be taking our leave first." With that, they didn't wait for Yuan Jinglei and the others to urge them to stay. Instead, they turned into streaks of light and left the area. Qing Hu and her siblings had ugly expressions on their faces. They didn't expect the 9 profound tower to catch up so quickly. Qing Hu blamed herself. She thought that they had already left the 9 profound tower far behind, but she didn't expect them to catch up so quickly. Otherwise, she wouldn't have gone to the Central Plains to save Yang Huajun and Ying Ao no matter what. These people definitely had some sort of method or treasure. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to discover and correct the direction of their pursuits so quickly. Yuan Jinglei and Yang Huajun looked at each other helplessly before flying towards the 9 profound towers cultivators from the north, hoping to get their help. As a result, the group of Mara on the hill seemed to have sensed that something was wrong and had already begun to retreat. If they didn't hurry, these Maras would probably disappear without a trace. As the 3 of them left, a mighty gust of wind blew in the sky once more. The white clouds that had just gathered in the sky were dispersed once more, then leisurely flew in the direction that Qing Hu and the others had left in. From the beginning to the end, Yuan Jinglei and the others didn't notice the abnormality in the sky. The 9 profound towers' light did not slow down in the slightest when Yuan Jinglei and the others went to meet them. On the contrary, it seemed to have sped up a little, as if it wanted to charge towards the 3. Yuan Jinglei frowned and called out loudly, "Are you fellow Taoists from the 9 profound tower?" "I am Yuan Jinglei. There's a group of Maras on the hill in front of us. We want to exterminate them, but we don't have the strength to do so. Fellow Taoists, would you be willing to lend us a hand?" The light finally slowed down, and a woman's voice came from within. There was a trace of surprise in her voice. "You're from the Yuan clan?" Yuan Jinglei's lips curled into a smile. Just as he was about to speak, the woman's voice rang out again, "I don't have time to waste with you. Hurry up and get out of the way. Those 3 bastards escaped from you earlier, and I originally wanted to settle the score with you. It seems like you didn't know either, but don't stop me from capturing them now." Yuan Jinglei's face immediately darkened. Even Yang Huajun and Ying Ao behind him had ugly expressions on their faces. They were people of high status, and the moment they announced their clan's name, they were used to receiving flattery and flattery. Even those of similar status would have to give them some face. When had they ever suffered such merciless ridicule? However, from the looks of it, there were at least 7 or 8 people in the group. Among them, there were a few whose auras weren't any weaker than theirs. It was obvious that they were people of high status in the 9 profound tower. Furthermore, they were rushing towards them in such an overbearing manner, as if they intended to start a fight. Yuan Jinglei, Yang Huajun, and Ying Ao had no choice but to dodge. A few streaks of light whizzed past them, and the proud voice of the woman from before could be heard. At the same time, they could vaguely hear a conversation. "Senior Sister Jiuan, that Yuan Jinglei is one of the 3 young masters of the Yuan clan. The 2 beside him seem to have extraordinary statuses as well, and they seem to be from the peacock race and the lone eagle. How about we, can't you have some guts?" "So what if they're the peacock or the lone eagle? We're disciples of the 9 profound tower. When have our statuses been lower than theirs? It's more important to chase after those 3 bastards. Just now, they shot those 3 bastards. I'm already giving face to the forces behind them by not settling the score with them. Otherwise, don't blame me for not giving face to anyone who blocks our way. Yes, senior sister is right. For some reason, these people did not deliberately conceal their voices. Although the streaks of light were fast, Yuan Jinglei and Yang Huajun were not ordinary people. How could they not hear their conversation? A trace of anger flashed across Yuan Jinglei's face, but he quickly concealed it. On the other hand, Yang Huajun and Ying Ao's faces were ashen. Clearly, they were incomparably furious at the woman's arrogance. With a bitter smile on his face, Yuan Jinglei said, "I was reckless and caused the 2 of you to be humiliated. However, I just remembered that this woman seems to have a special identity. No wonder she's so arrogant." Yang Huajun said in a deep voice, "Fellow Taoist Yuan, who exactly is that woman?" With a trace of difficulty on his face, Yuan Jinglei still opened his mouth and said, "This woman is none other than the current 9 Palace Guard of the 9 Palace Tower, Zhu Jilwan." Without the slightest expression on his face, Yang Huajun said word by word, "Zhu Jilwan, hee, what a good Zhu Jilwan." With a bitter smile, Yuan Jinglei said, "Although this Zhu Jilwan is only the 9 Palace Guard of the 9 Palace Tower, and she has just obtained this position, the person behind her is not simple. Although the eldest princess has a noble status, don't easily find trouble with her, okay?" Ying Ao snorted coldly and said, "Oh, so it's just a playboy from the sacred land of the Central Plains. I wonder who is behind this person. Brother Yuan, please tell me." Yuan Jinglei looked like he did not know what to do and could only say in a low voice, "This person's grandaunt is a 2nd-generation disciple of the 9 Palace Tower. Among the 2nd-generation practitioners of the entire human cultivation world, she is almost the 2nd person to step into the pure yang stage, 8th Sister Zhu Laozu." Although 8th Sister Zhu, the pure yang practitioner of the 9 Palace Tower, was a 2nd-generation disciple, her grandniece, Zhu Jilwan, was a 3rd-generation disciple and was most doted on by 8th Sister Zhu Laozu. The hostility in Ying Ao's eyes instantly disappeared by half. In Ying Ao's view, even if there was a late Dharma adept behind this woman, even if there was more than one, he, Ying Ao, would not be afraid. However, the person behind this woman was actually a pure yang practitioner, Laozu. In that case, Ying Ao naturally would not do something like throwing an egg against a rock. Yang Huajun laughed coldly. The 2nd pure yang among the 2nd-generation practitioners? There were already 2 2nd-generation pure yang practitioners of the Peacock royalty, and there were only 2 pure yang practitioners among the 2nd-generation practitioners of the human race. The eldest princess of the Peacock royalty naturally had the right to laugh coldly. At this time, Yuan Jinglei also had no choice but to return to the human race and say, "There are still some differences between the 2nd-generation practitioners of the human race and the demon race. The demon race has always had a longer lifespan than the human race. If the cultivators of the same generation have the same progress, the time that the demon race cultivators spend cultivating is usually 100 to 200 years longer than the human race, and the time that the demon race cultivators spend cultivating is usually 30 to 50 years shorter than the human race. However, the number of pure yang Laozu in the human race and the demon race is almost the same. This is also the reason why the human race and the demon race are always in a stalemate, with no one able to do anything to the other." Having said that, in fact, the human clan had always been faster than the monster clan, so the 2 sides could still maintain a general balance. Nothing more than the human clan cultivators had a shorter cultivation time, and the pure yang clan cultivators had a faster replacement, while the monster clan cultivators had a relatively longer cultivation time, and the pure yang ancestor had a longer lifespan. But overall, in fact, the human clan still outnumbered the monster clan, which was why the most fertile areas of the cultivation world were occupied by the human clan cultivators. Qing Hu and the other 2 flew all the way to the sky above Qingming River, preparing to follow the river downstream to search for Lu Ping. However, the 9 profound towers' pursuers were right in front of them, and Qingming River was the widest and smoothest in the middle reaches, so the three of them were unable to scan the entire surface of the river with their divine sense. They could only try their best to fly downstream in an attempt to shake off the 9 profound towers' pursuers. However, the area around Qingming River was an endless stretch of flat land, without any cover. Even if the three of them could avoid the pursuers behind them, they couldn't shake them off. Qing Hu could no longer hold himself back. He said in a low voice, "We can't escape anymore. We might as well turn back and fight to our heart's content. If we continue to run like this, we won't be able to escape and our Zhen Yuan will be mostly recovered." If they were to fight a battle of attrition with the cultivators from the sacred grounds, the cultivators from the sacred grounds could rely on all sorts of elixirs to recover Zhen Yuan. In the end, their Zhen Yuan would be completely exhausted. So what if they were to turn back and fight? Among the 9 profound towers' pursuers, there were 3 who had the qualifications to become the 9 heirs. Qing Hu and the other 2 were no match for them. "Qing Hu, where do you think you're going this time? Are there still people from the Purple Sun Palace and the Spirit Beast Taming Sect coming to rescue you?" Zhu Jiuwan's shrill voice came from afar, his tone filled with pride. "Damn it. Big sis, third bro, you guys leave first. I'll fight them first." Qing Hu roared and turned around to attack the 9 profound towers' pursuers. Qing Hu knew that they couldn't continue to run like this. Only by throwing caution to the wind and blocking the pursuers behind them would they have a chance at survival. However, just as he was about to turn around, Qing Hu grabbed his shoulder and said, "Don't be impatient, there might be a turn for the better." Qing Hu was stunned when he heard this, and even Qing Hu looked at Qing Hu with a hint of hope in his eyes. "Look at the fog around us." Fog? Qing Hu and Qing Lang looked around and discovered that there was indeed fog around them. However, the fog was so thin that it was almost non-existent. It seemed to be just a little thicker than the water vapor above the river. However, after the 3 of them flew for another few kilometers, Qing Lang was the first to feel joy in his heart. This was because the fog was indeed gradually becoming thicker. However, this change was too gradual, and neither he nor Qing Hu had noticed it before. Right at this moment, the 9 profound houses' cultivators behind the 3 of them suddenly sped up, closing the distance between them by a few dozen feet. Qing Lang's expression changed. The 9 profound towers' cultivators had also noticed that something was wrong. They were using secret techniques to increase their speed. Chapter 1190. The cultivators from the 9 profound towers suddenly sped up, quickly closing the distance between them and Qing Hu's group. They had clearly discovered that something was amiss with the mist that had suddenly appeared above the azure nether river. However, as the cultivators from the 9 profound towers suddenly sped up, a thick mist suddenly rose up from the surface of the river not far away from Cyan Fox's team of 3. The mist billowed towards Cyan Fox's team. Qing Hu's group's expressions changed slightly, but in the end, they didn't bother dodging the 9 profound tower cultivators behind them. Instead, they charged headfirst into the thick mist and disappeared without a trace. The cultivators from the 9 profound towers seemed to pause in midair for a moment, but before they could do anything, the surging mist suddenly pounced on them and swallowed them whole. Qing Hu's group of 3 immediately lost their sense of direction after entering the mist. They flew as fast as they could, but they couldn't get out of the mist. Their divine sense spread out in all directions, but it was like a clay ox entering the sea. The 3 of them knew that they had run into an ambush set up by another powerful cultivator. The 3 of them were on their guard, but their surroundings were completely silent. After a while, a rustling sound suddenly came from within the mist. Green Wolf pointed downwards, and Green Fox understood that Green Wolf was referring to the Azure Netherworld River. The 3 of them suddenly stopped flying and started descending. As long as they could land in the Azure Nether River, they would naturally be able to escape the mist formation. "Why are you running?" A soft voice rang in the ears of the 3, but it was no less than a clap of thunder. The 3 of them stood up in shock, only to discover that although the 3 of them had been falling all the way, it seemed that they had not fallen even an inch. But why did that voice sound so familiar? Qing Lang hurriedly looked at Qing Hu, only to see her expression suddenly calm down. There was even a hint of joy in her eyes. Was it really Lu Tianping? A cloud of mist condensed in front of the three of them, gradually forming the outline of a person. As the mist continued to fuse with the person's outline also gradually became clearer. Who else could it be but Lu Tianping? I came to greet you guys first. Those 9 profound tower cultivators aren't easy to deal with. This Lu Ping smiled faintly and explained to the crowd, I was so focused on dealing with the 9 profound pavilion cultivators that I forgot to inform you guys. Qinghu exclaimed, Divine sense projection? Isn't this a skill that only late Dharma adepts who have gone through the second thunder trial have? How did you manage to do it? Qinghu's eyes darted around, and he suddenly said, No wonder you defeated the 4th elder of the Tenma people. You've already reached the late Dharma stage, I knew it. Qinghu and Qinghu looked at each other, and Qinghu could not help but say, Second brother, shut up. Qinghu was infuriated. Just as he was about to curse at Qinglang, he heard Qinghu ask, How about you? Can you handle it? Those 7-9 profound pavilion cultivators are all heir disciples. 3 of them are the guardians of 7-star pavilion, 8 trigrams pavilion, and 9 palace pavilion. Their cultivation bases are probably not inferior to yours. Lu Ping smiled and said, I have the geographical advantage on the Qingming River. I can handle it for now. Qinghu also knew that he had said the wrong thing. Lu Ping could not be a late Dharma adept, but hearing that he could handle 7-9 profound pavilion cultivators by himself and still have time to converse with the 3 of them through the divine sense projection technique, Qinghu said sincerely, Impressive. I'm impressed. It was important to know that the 3 of them had been chased by the 7-9 profound pavilion cultivators for nearly 10,000 miles to the south. Naturally, they knew how powerful these 7 people were. The more they knew, the more Qinghu admired Lu Tianping's abilities. Lu Ping only smiled at Qinghu's praise. Although the divine sense projection was a shadow, Lu Ping had used his divine sense to condense water vapor. In fact, it could be considered as having a body. This was quite similar to the art of deception, and it could also be clearly displayed in Lu Ping's application. Did you guys come all the way to the south just to find me? Qinghu made a sound of surprise and said, How did you know we were going all the way south? Lu Ping smiled and said, I was there when you guys helped Yang Huajun and Ingao escape. I didn't want to see those 2, so I didn't tell you guys that I was hiding nearby. After that, I saw the 9 profound pavilion cultivators chasing after you guys, so I went back to the Qingming River first and made some arrangements, waiting for you guys to come over. After Lu Ping explained the whole story, the 3 of them were even more shocked. First Princess Yang Huajun and Lone Eagle Ingao, and then Yuan Jinglei, who came later, were all famous practitioners. Including Qinghu himself, they were all mid-Dharma adepts like Lu Ping. However, they never knew that someone was hiding near them. Lu Ping asked again, Previously, when we were in the South Sea, I heard from Su Jin of the Purple Sun Palace that the 9 of you had offended the 9 profound pavilion. After that, it was Brother Xie and Brother Sang who intervened to settle the matter. Why is the 9 profound pavilion looking for you guys again? Did something happen to Brother Xie and Brother Sang? Qinghu nodded and said, The last time Brother Xie and Brother Yi tried to punish the 9 profound pavilion, they were summoned back to their respective sects and never appeared again. However, this time, the 9 profound pavilion is chasing us because we provoked them first. Oh, so that's how it is. Lu Ping nodded, then suddenly frowned and said, wait a moment. I didn't expect this girl from the 9 profound pavilion to have such a treasure on her. As soon as Lu Ping finished speaking, the divine will projection in front of him suddenly dissipated. The real body that was fighting the 9 profound pavilion had obviously run into some trouble, and Lu Ping had no choice but to withdraw his divine will. The dissipated body turned into a spray of water, then fell down like a drizzle. The 3 of them looked at each other, then quickly stood back to back, on high alert. Next, they saw the thick fog around them move in a certain direction. Soon after, the fog thinned. Clearly, the fog array that Lu Ping had just set up was about to be broken. Soon after, a cry of alarm came from within the fog, followed by a series of violent explosions. The violent shock waves of spiritual energy caused the rapidly shrinking fog to dissipate, but the fog continued to move in a certain direction. At the same time, a cacophony of curses could be heard, mixed with Zhu Jiuwan's slightly shrill voice. Clearly, Lu Ping and the 9 Profound Pavilions cultivators had encountered each other. However, from the sounds of the battle, it seemed that the 9 Profound Pavilions cultivators were the ones at a disadvantage. Suddenly, a dark light shone from the thick fog. The light grew brighter and brighter, and the surrounding fog became thinner and thinner. Then, a figure appeared 100 feet away from Qing Hu and the others. The 3 of them tensed up, but they quickly realized that the figure's back was facing them, and it seemed to be Lu Ping himself. As the fog thinned, it flowed even faster, until finally, the fog retracted and disappeared into the spout of the glowing teapot. A jade-like hand beckoned to the air, and the black teapot slowly fell into it. This person was the 9 Profound Pavilions' direct disciple, Zhu Jiuwan. At this time, there were only 6 people in Zhu Jiuwan's group gathered together, and they were about 100 meters away from Azure Fox and the others. One of them seemed to have suffered serious injuries, and his face was pale. He was being supported by 2 of his fellow disciples, who were also sweating profusely and seemed to be treating his injuries. Lu Ping stood in front of the 3, facing Zhu Jiuwan and the others from a distance. Lu Tianping of the North Sea? Zhu Jiuwan stared at the person in front of her, and as for Azure Fox and the others behind Lu Ping, they were completely ignored. Lu Ping smiled faintly and said, "That's me." Zhu Jiuwan's expression was extremely ugly, and she said coldly, "Do you want to make an enemy of my 9 Profound Pavilion?" Lu Ping smiled faintly, "I wouldn't dare to be your enemy, but you don't seem to be the leader of the 9 Profound Pavilion. Fellow Taoist Zhu is too full of yourself." The anger on Zhu Jiuwan's face deepened, but the more angry she was, the more fearful she was of Lu Ping. She continued, "What relationship do you have with Azure Fox and the others, for you to be willing to make an enemy of my 9 Profound Pavilion?" Lu Ping still had a calm expression on his face, and he said, "I've already said that although you're the 9 Palace Guardian of the 9 Profound Pavilion, you can't represent the entire 9 Profound Pavilion. As for Azure Fox and the others, you've suffered at the hands of Brother Xie of the Purple Sun Palace and Brother Sang of the Spirit-Taming Beast sect, yet I'm very close to those 2. Surely you're aware of the relationship between us, fellow Taoist Zhu?" Back then, Xie Tianyang and Sang Yu had punished the 2 9 Profound Pavilion Masters because of Azure Fox, and this matter had caused quite a stir in the Central Plains cultivation world. Many sects had even interfered, and Xie Tianyang and Sang Yu had been summoned back by their respective sects to cultivate in seclusion. From Lu Ping's point of view, it was more like facing the wall and reflecting on their mistakes. Zhu Jiuwan naturally knew that Xie Tianyang and Sang Yu had defeated the 2 Tower Masters of the 9 Mystical Tower. The reason why she had risen from the top 10 of the 9 Mystical Tower's direct disciples to the position of Guardian Tower Master of the 9 Palace Tower was partly because of ancestor Zhu Bajie, but in fact, it was also because the previous 2 Tower Masters had been demoted by the 9 Mystical Tower. Zhu Jiuwan glanced at the injured junior brother beside her and said coldly, "Since Lu Daoyu insists on getting involved in this mess, I have nothing else to say. I ask Lu Daoyu to release my 8th senior brother and cure junior brother Su of the cold poison. We'll leave immediately after that." Azure Fox and the others immediately shuddered. Lu Ping had actually captured the 9 Profound Pavilion Master. Qing Hu didn't even think about it and immediately shouted, "You can't release him." The expressions of Zhu Jiuwan and the others immediately changed. Lu Ping also looked slightly surprised as he turned to look at the 3 of them. However, Azure Fox explained, "Brother Lu, the other party has captured 4th brother, 7th sister, and 8th brother. I hope Brother Lu can help them and exchange for them." Chapter 1191. Even though Lu Ping was highly skilled, he was still facing 7 direct disciples of the 9 Xian Tower at the same time, including 3 tower leaders. Naturally, he did not have the confidence to win, which was why he had used the cover of the fog to launch a sneak attack. Since they were not fighting head-on, the 8 trigrams master of the 9 Xian Tower was caught off guard and was captured alive by Lu Ping. Then, he was thrown into the House of Gold and imprisoned. At the same time, Samling made his move. At this time, Samling was facing a direct disciple of the 9 Xian Tower who was at the peak of the early Dharma stage. This was because Lu Ping had taken the initiative to launch a sneak attack and disrupted the formation of the 7 direct disciples of the 9 Xian Tower. He managed to pin down 6 of them, while the remaining one was surrounded by Samling. Although Samling was only at the peak of the core forging stage, Samling, who had condensed a 9th-grade golden elixir, was already very powerful. Previously, they had joined forces to fight against a Dharma adept. Although they were facing a direct disciple of the 9 Xian Tower, they were not afraid. Just as Lu Bai and Lu Hai joined forces to block the attack from the 9 Xian Tower's cultivator, Lu Ling, suddenly jumped out from the side and bit the cultivator's arm. At this time, the 9 Xian Tower's cultivator, who had suffered a series of setbacks, finally managed to retract the fog that Lu Ping had set up with the help of Zhu Jiuwan's black teapot. However, Samling had already returned to Lu Ping's side, and Lu Ping was standing in front of them. When the 9 Xian Tower's cultivator recognized Lu Tianping, everyone's expression changed. It was not only because Lu Ping was able to fight against a late Dharma adept, but also because they suddenly remembered that something shocking had happened to Lu Tianping. He had 3 green sea snakes by his side, and it seemed that the green sea snakes had sent a great practitioner to investigate, but in the end, the 3 green sea snakes had not been taken away from Lu Ping. The green sea snake's venom was well known in the world, and almost every green sea snake's venom was different, and the venom would increase with the green sea snake's level of practice. After one's level of practice had reached the Dharma stage, every green sea snake's venom could be considered a rare poison in the world. However, although the green sea snake's venom was strange, it was affected by the level of practice. With Lu Ling-er's current peak core forging cultivation, even if she bit the 9 Xian Tower's cultivator, she would not be able to remove or expel the venom for the time being. With the friar's strength at the peak of the early Dharma stage, it was completely possible for him to suppress the venom. However, in reality, at this time, the wound on the 9 Xian Tower's cultivator's arm had already been frozen by frost. No matter how much he mobilized the inner yuan in his body, he could not suppress the cold venom in his arm at all. Unless he cut off his own arm, but if he did so, his physical body would be damaged. In the future, if he wanted to improve his level of practice, he would have to take a more arduous path than ordinary people. In reality, after Lu Ling-er had taken his breath, the cold venom stubbornly stuck to his arm and did not spread into the cultivator's body. It was also not suppressed by the cultivator's inner yuan in the slightest. Zhu Jiuwan had already understood the situation on his side at the first moment. He knew that today he was afraid that he would be defeated by Lu Tianping. Originally, he had wanted to use the 9 Xian Tower's name to pressure Lu Ping into releasing the poison, but he did not expect that the Green Fox 9 bandits and Lu Tianping were actually jackals of the same tribe. At this time, Zhu Jiuwan remembered that when Lu Tianping first rose to prominence in the Central Plains, he had teamed up with Xie Tianyang of the Purple Sun Palace and Sang Yu of the Spirit-Taming Beast sect to fight against the 4th elder of the Tenma people, Mali. Previously, Xie Tianyang and Sang Yu had attacked the 9 Xian Tower's 7-star tower and 8 trigrams tower master because of the Green Fox 9 bandits, causing the 7-star tower master and 8 trigrams tower master to be demoted one after another. This was why the previous 9 Palace Tower Master was automatically promoted to the 7-star Tower Master, ranked 10th among the direct disciples. Now, the person who had been captured by Lu Ping had the right to directly become the 8-star Tower Master, and Zhu Jiuwan also had the opportunity to take control of the 9 Palace Tower. Not long after Zhu Jiuwan took control of the 9 Palace Tower, he once again targeted the Green Fox 9 bandits. There was no other reason, but he simply wanted to establish his authority over the Green Fox 9 bandits. 2 of the 9 Profound Tower's Tower Masters were deposed one after another. Admittedly, it was because they coveted the women of the Green Fox 9 bandits, but it was also because they lost to Xie Tianyang and Sang Yu in an extremely ugly manner. But after Zhu Jiuwan took control of the 9 Palace Tower, There were quite a few voices in the sect who believed that the reason she was able to take control of the Nine Palace Tower was because she had a grandaunt named Pure Yang, Laozu. If not for this grandaunt supporting her, Zhu Jiuwan wouldn't even be able to enter the top 10 direct disciples. In fact, before Zhu Jiuwan took control of the Nine Palace Tower, when she was only ranked 11th among the direct disciples, there were similar voices in the Nine Profound Tower. They said that the reason she was able to become a direct disciple was because of 8th sister Zhu Laozu. But at that time, these voices were very low. Zhu Jiuwan had a certain level of ability, so she completely treated these rumors as the jealousy of others. But after taking control of the Nine Palace Tower, her status rose once again. The 9 Tower Masters of the 9 Profound Tower had always been the direct disciples of the direct disciples. The person in charge of the 9 Profound Tower, as well as Laozu, had always been groomed from among the 9 Tower Masters. Being able to become one of the 9 Tower Masters not only meant that one's strength was superb, but it also meant that the 9 Profound Tower had spared no effort in grooming one. Thus, the competition between the 9 Tower Masters had always been extremely fierce. Thus, whether it was intentional or not, the pressure of public opinion caused by taking control of the 9 Palace Tower this time was something that even Zhu Jiuwan, with 8th sister Zhu Laozu's support, found it hard to bear. Thus, Zhu Jiuwan urgently needed to establish her authority, and the target of her authority was naturally the Green Fox 9 bandits, the instigators of the change in the position of direct disciple of the 9 Profound Tower. Because of the battle between Xie Tianyang and Sang Yu with the direct disciples of the 9 Profound Tower, the 9 Profound Tower had directly demoted the 2 Tower Masters, but the 2 of them had also been summoned back by their respective sects to reflect on their mistakes. Without their support, wouldn't it be easy for the Green Fox 9 bandits to capture them? However, the usually arrogant Zhu Jiuwan chose to be cautious this time. She did not hesitate to invite the 2 Tower Masters of the 7-Star Tower and the 8 Trigrams Tower to capture the Green Fox 9 bandits together. Just like Zhu Jiuwan, the 8 Trigrams Tower Master had also been promoted from the 10th direct disciple to the 8th after the previous 2 Tower Masters were demoted. Although he did not receive as much criticism as Zhu Jiuwan, there were still people who coveted his position and were naturally eager to prove themselves. As for why they had invited the 7-Star Tower Master, it was very simple. Although Zhu Jiuwan had received a lot of criticism from the entire 9 Profound Tower, she still had the Pure Yang cultivator, Laozu, behind her. There was no lack of people in the sect who would purposely try to curry favor with her. This 7-Star Tower Master and the other 4 direct adepts who had accompanied Zhu Jiuwan out this time were obviously because of this reason. In reality, their original plan had been progressing rather smoothly. For some unknown reason, the Green Fox 9 bandits had once again appeared near the 9 Profound Tower, and from the original 9, there were only 6 of them left. After Zhu Jiuwan and the others had captured 3 of them alive, the remaining 3 Dharma adepts, Green Fox, Green Tiger and Green Wolf, who had the highest level of training, had headed south. Zhu Jiuwan and the others had chased them all the way and were just about to succeed in one fell swoop when the sudden appearance of Lu Tianping had ruined their plans. This time, Lu Tianping had once again stood up for the Green Fox 9 bandits. It was obvious that the Green Fox 9 bandits had some unknown relationship with Xie Tianyang, Sang Yu, and Lu Tianping. The Green Fox 9 bandits had always worked together. This time, Lu Ping had been puzzled as to why only Green Fox and the other 2 were together. He had initially thought that it was because the other 6 did not have a high enough level of training. But now, he found out that 3 of them had already been captured. However, he did not know where the other 3 were. At this point, Zhu Jiuwan's face had already turned green with anger. She opened her mouth and said, "How can the lives of a few lone practitioners be worth the lives of my 9 Profound Tower's disciples? Lu Dao, if you insist on becoming an enemy of my 9 Profound Tower, have you thought about the consequences?" Lu Ping found it funny and said, "Since fellow Dao Yuzhu also thinks that my 3 good friends are just lone practitioners and their lives aren't worth anything, then I ask fellow Dao Yuzhu to release my 3 good friends. In exchange, I will also release your 8 Profound Tower's 8 Trigrams Master. Exchanging 1 for 3, Your sect's 8 trigrams master's value is not low. Fellow Taoist Zhu's words are indeed true. Although the Green Fox 9 bandits had already acknowledged Lu Ping as their master, even if it was not because of Sang Yu's status as Green Fox's sworn brother, Lu Ping would not deliberately use them as his slaves. In front of Zhu Jilwan, he only treated them as friends. Naturally, Zhu Jilwan did not know that the Green Fox 9 bandits had already acknowledged Lu Ping as their master. It was only right and proper for Lu Ping to stand up for them. She only knew that after failing on the verge of success, she would face even greater suspicion when she returned to the 9 Profound Tower. Even with her great aunt's support, she might not be able to withstand the criticism of others. It was as if she could already see that the position of the Lord of the 9 Palaces, which she had obtained with great difficulty, would change hands once again. She would also become an ordinary direct disciple like the previous 2 lords who had been demoted. For a moment, her mind was in a mess, and the logic of her words was disordered, causing her own family to be dragged into this mess. At this time, it was clear that Lu Ping was standing up for the Green Fox 9 bandits, so Zhu Jilwan no longer dared to throw tantrums. She only hoped that she could bring back the people who came with her in one piece. Otherwise, there would be no room for negotiation. Even if 8th Sister Zhu could cover the sky with one hand in the 9 Profound Tower, she would not have the face to occupy the position of 9 Halls Master. Zhu Jilwan gritted her teeth and said, "Fine, as long as you release 8th Senior Brother, I will also release the 3 bandits. However, you must first cure my junior brother Su of the cold poison." Lu Ping smiled, "Of course. If there is no need, I will not shed all pretense of cordiality and make an enemy of a sacred sect like the 9 Profound Tower. However, you have the advantage in numbers, so it is best that you release my 3 friends first." Zhu Jilwan's face darkened. "Then when will you release my 8th Senior Brother?" Lu Ping said, "You can rest assured. When my friends and I retreat to a safe place, the 8 trigrams master will meet up with you with the antidote." You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.